and we can lose. We always win. He's our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. You are the awesome God. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, you are the awesome God. And there's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, you are the awesome God. And there's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, you are the awesome God. And there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, you are the awesome God. And there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, you are the awesome God. And there's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, you are the awesome God. And there's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. You are the awesome God, and there's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. you we can't lose. We always win. You're our champion. You are the awesome God. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. You are the awesome God. And there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. You are the awesome God. And there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. You are the awesome God. And there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. We lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah for the King who is victorious. You are the awesome God. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. You are the awesome God. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. You are the awesome God. And there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. We lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands. the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome God, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome God, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome God, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome God, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome God, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Shabbat shalom, as we have gathered together in this, our Sabbath class, this great rising. I pray that you had a prosperous night and a wonderful rest. I pray that our Yah has caused you to be thirsty and hungry on this Shabbat for his instructions, as we are truly thirsty, hungry and thirsty for his uprightness as we gather together on this great rising. We're going to begin, as we begin every Sabbath class, with the Baruch of the Torah. Excuse me. Repeat with me. Baruch Yahuwah.
Baruch Yahuwah.
The Baruch one.
The Baruch one.
Baruch is Yahuwah.
Baruch is Yahuwah.
The Baruch one.
The Baruch one.
For all eternity.
For all eternity.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Our supreme one.
Our supreme one.
King of the universe.
King of the
Who
universe.
selected us from all the peoples.
Who selected us from all the peoples.
And gave us his Torah.
And gave us his Torah.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Giver of the Torah.
Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Our supreme one.
Our supreme one.
King of the universe.
King of the universe.
Excuse me. Who gave us the Torah of truth.
Who gave us the Torah of truth.
And implanted eternal life within us.
And implanted eternal life within us.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Giver of the Torah.
Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Now we will have the reading of the Ten Commandments brought by Apostle Brown, coming from the book of the Bitter, chapter 5, verses 6 through 22.
Aleph, I am Yahuwah your power, which brought you out of the land of Israel from the day to slave. Bet, you shall have no other power before me. You shall not make you any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in Shemayim above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the vine beneath the earth. You shall not bow down yourself unto them, nor serve them, for I, Yahuwah your power, am a jealous power. visiting the iniquity of the hours upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Amen. You shall not take the name of Yahuwah your power and falsify it, for Yahuwah will not hold him guiltless that takes his name and empties it. Dalit, God the Sabbath day to set it apart, and Yahuwah your power has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahuwah your power. In it you shall not do any work, you nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your ox, nor your ass, nor any of your cattle, nor your foreigner that is within your gates, that your manservant and your maidservant may rest as well as you. And remember that you were a servant in the land of Mizraim, and that Yahuwah your power brought you out of there through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore Yahuwah your power commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. And honor your Ab and your Ema as Yahuwah your power has commanded you, that your days may be prolonged, and that it may go well with you in the land which Yahuwah your power is about to give you. 1, you shall not murder. Zain, neither shall you commit adultery. Het, neither shall you steal. Tet, neither shall you bear false witness against your neighbor. You, neither shall you desire your neighbor's wife, neither shall you covet your neighbor's bed, his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. These words Yahuwah spoke unto all your assembly in the mount out of the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the thick darkness with a great voice. And he added no more. And he wrote in the 2 tables of stone and delivered them unto thee.
And it is so. And he added no more. Yahushua the son of Nun, chapter 1, verses 7 and 8. We're going to read verse 7, and then we're going to recite verse 8 together. Only be you strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the Torah which Moshe my servant commanded you. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. Verse 8, let us read it or let us confess it together. I will not let this scroll of the Torah
I will not let the scroll of the Torah
depart out of my mouth,
depart out of my mouth,
but I shall meditate in it
but I shall meditate in it
day and night,
day and night,
that I may observe to do
that I may observe to do
according to all that is written in it.
according to all that is written in it.
For then I shall make my way prosperous,
For then I shall make my way prosperous,
and act wisely.
and act wisely,
And act wisely.
and act wisely.
Now look at your neighbor, tell your neighbor, and you shall act wisely,
And you shall act wisely.
Look at your other neighbor, tell your other neighbor, and you shall act wisely,
And you shall act wisely.
Now take your hand and place it over your heart and say, Abba Yah,
Abba Yah,
I shall act wisely.
I shall act wisely.
Come on, Abba Yah,
Abba Yah,
I shall act wisely.
I shall act wisely.
I endeavor
to
to act wisely.
act wisely.
I endeavor
to
act wisely.
act wisely.
I
endeavor
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Wisdom brings us success, because every action has a consequence, and every consequence is because of an action. Always remember that. And it is so.
And it is so.
All right, let us have a song, please. There is none like you. No one else can touch my heart like you do. I can search for all eternity, Yahuwah, and find there is none like you. There is none like you. No one else can touch me up. No one else can touch my heart like you do. I can search for all eternity, Yahuwah, and find there is none like you. There is none like you. No one else can touch my heart. No one else can touch my heart like you do. I can search for all eternity of who I can't find. There is none like you. There is none, there is none. There is none like you. No one else can touch me up. No one else can touch my heart like you do. I can search for all eternity of who I can't find. There is none like you. There is none, oh no. There is none like you. No one else can touch my heart. No one else can touch my heart like you do. I can search for all eternity of who I can't find. There is none like you. There is none, there is none. No, there is none like you. No one else can touch me up. No one else can touch my heart like you do. I can search for all eternity of who I can't find. There is none like you. There is none, there is none. There is none like you. No one else can touch me up. No one else can touch my heart like you do. I can search for all eternity of who I can't find. There is none like you. There is none, oh no. There is none like you. No one else can touch my heart. No one else can touch my heart like you do. I can search for all eternity of who I can't find. There is none like you. There is none, there is none. There is none like you. No one else can touch me up. No one else can touch my heart like you do. I can search for all eternity of who I can't find. There is none like you. There is none, there is none. There is none like you. No one else can touch me up. No one else can touch my heart like you do. I can search for all eternity of who I can't find. There is none like you. There is none, there is none. There is none like you. No one else can touch me up. No one else can touch my heart like you do. I can search for all eternity of can search for all eternity, Yahuwah, and find there is none like you. There is none, there is none, no. There is none like you. No one else can touch my heart. No one else can touch my heart like you do. I can search for all eternity, Yahuwah, and find there is none like you. There is none, oh no, there is none like you. No one else can touch me up. No one else can touch my heart like you do. I can search for all eternity, Yahuwah, and find there is none like you. Come on, Hallelujah. He is a great king. He is our Savior. He is our King. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And we do praise him. We do give him esteem. Once again, on this great day, Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 1 through 18, and it reads, These are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which Yahuwah your power commanded to teach you, that you might do them in the land where you are going to enter and possess it, that you might fear Yahuwah your power to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the days of your life, and that your days may be prolonged. Hear therefore, O Yisrael, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as Yahuwah power of your Abbas has promised you, in the land that flows with milk and honey. Shema Yisrael, Yahuwah is our Savior. Yahuwah is Akkad. Hear, O Yisrael, Yahuwah our Supreme One. Yahuwah is Akkad. And you shall ahaba Yahuwah your power, your Supreme One, with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart. And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your bed, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be as frontlets between your eyes. To fall, to bind to the mind, to bind to the mind, give access, let it move around, let it have access to move around in your mind. And you shall write them upon the posts of your bed and on your gates. And it shall be when Yahuwah your power shall have brought you into the land which he swore unto your Abbas, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Yaakov, to give you great cities which you did not build, houses full of all great things which you fill not, and wells dug which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. When you shall have eaten and be full, then beware lest you forget Yahuwah, which brought you forth out of the land of Mitzrayim, from the bed of slavery. You shall fear Yahuwah your power, and serve him, and shall swear by his name. You shall fear Yahuwah your power, and serve him, and shall swear by his name, no other name. That's right. You shall not go after other power of the power of the people which are round about you. For Yahuwah your power is a jealous power among you, lest the anger of Yahuwah your power be kindled against you, and he destroy you from off the face of the earth. You shall not tempt Yahuwah your power as you tempted him in Massah. You shall diligently keep the commandments of Yahuwah your power, and his testimonies and his statutes, which he has commanded you. And you shall do that which is great in the sight of Yahuwah, that it may be well with you, and that you may go in and possess the great land which Yahuwah swore to your Abbas. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Let's have a nice Oh yeah, we praise you. 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 Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Sing like they would sing. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Sing like they would sing. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Sing like they would sing. Oh yeah, we praise you. 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 Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Dance like this again. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Dance like this again. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Dance like this again. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Dance like this again. Oh yeah, we praise you. 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 Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Pray like they would pray. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Pray like they would pray. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Pray like they would pray. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Pray like they would pray. Oh yeah, we praise you. 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 Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Clap like they would clap. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Clap like they would clap. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Clap like they would clap. Oh yeah, we praise you. 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 Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Clap like they would clap. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Clap like they would clap. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Clap like they would clap. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Clap like they would clap. Oh yeah, we praise Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Praise like he was praised. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Praise like he was praised. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Praise like he was praised. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Praise like he was praised. Oh yeah, we praise you. 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 Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Sing like everything. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Sing like everything. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Sing like everything. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Sing like everything. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Sing like everything. Oh yeah, we praise you. 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 Hallelujah! 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 You're worthy, you're worthy. Hallelujah! 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 And we praise you, we praise you, we praise you, we praise you. I praise you. I praise you for your commitment and your dedication to us, your people, for your compassion and your mercy that never fails us. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy. Hallelujah. You are a way maker. Hallelujah. You are a mind regulator and you are a heart fixer. Yes, you are. And your covenant is everlasting unto us, your people. And we do magnify you. We magnify you. We magnify you because you're worthy. You're worthy. You're worthy. You're worthy. You're worthy. You're worthy. And we praise you. We praise you because you are such. You are a great king. You are an awesome king. Hallelujah. You are our Abba. We appreciate you for all that you do and all that you've done and all that you're yet going to do. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. You're worthy. 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 Hallelujah. You're worthy. You're worthy. He's so worthy. Yes, he is. You're worthy, Abba. And I appreciate you. Yes, I do. I appreciate you. You're worthy. You're worthy. You're more precious than silver and gold. More valuable than every precious gem that we could ever find. You're more precious than all these things and so much more. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We adore you. We adore you. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. You're worthy, you're worthy. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy. You're worthy, you're worthy. You're worthy. We told our you off the after this Sabbath rest. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy. You're worthy, you're worthy. You're worthy, you're worthy. You're worthy. You're worthy. You're worthy.
Yes.
You're worthy. Hallelujah, hallelujah. You're worthy. And we told our you for one more day, one more opportunity to say Torah. One more opportunity to learn. One more opportunity to participate in this Sabbath rest.
Yes.
We told our you after that. That what you do, that what you done, and that what you yet willing to do. I told you after that because you are more than words on a page. You are a life giver. And I appreciate you. You are more than just knowledge that was handed down to us. You are personal. You are a personal Savior.
Yes, Lord.
You're personal. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you every day of my life. And it is so.
It is so.
I appreciate you. Missionary 15 and 8, the sacrifices of the wicked is an abomination, hateful and exceedingly offensive unto you, Abba Yah. But the prayer of the upright is your delight. Missionary 3 and 4, so shall we find great understanding and high esteem in the sight of judgment of Yahuwah and man. And it is so.
And it is so.
Tehillim 1 and 1, Baruch is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the unrighteous, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the instructions of Abba Yah, and he doth meditate upon it. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. His Torah is my delight. Yes, it is. Ibram 11 and 6, but without belief it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to Yahuwah must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. And it is so.
And it is so.
Psalm 34 and 15, the eyes of Yahuwah are upon the upright, and his ears open unto our cry. Verse 17, and the upright cry, and Yahuwah heareth and delivereth us out of all our troubles. The upright cry, and Yahuwah heareth and delivereth us out of all our troubles. His eyes are upon us. So everything we do and everything we say, he sees it. Everything we don't do and everything we don't say, he sees it. And he hears it. Acts 1 and 8, but we shall receive power after that the Ruach HaKodesh is come upon us, and we shall be witnesses unto him both in Jerusalem and all Judea and Shamar and unto the uttermost part of Europe. And it is so.
And it is so.
Ayah 33 and 4, the Ruach HaKodesh of Yahuwah hath made me, and the breath of the Almighty hath given me life. He has given me life. And I too I am full. Micah 4 and 8, for truly I am full of power by the Ruach HaKodesh of Yahuwah, and of judgment and of might to declare unto Yaakov his transgression, and to Yisrael his sin. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Yehukin and Aleph 5, 4 and 5. For whatsoever is born of Yahuwah overcometh the world. And this is the victory that overcometh the world. Even our belief. Who is he that overcometh the world? But he that believeth that Yahushua is the son of Yahuwah. Yehukin and Aleph 2, 5 and 6. For whoever keeps his word, the Torah, truly the Ahava of Yahuwah is perfected in him. By this we know that we are in him. He who says he abides in him ought himself also to walk just as he walked. Verse 17, and the world passes away and the lust thereof, but he that doeth the will of Yahuwah abideth forever. Somebody say abideth forever.
Abideth forever.
Say it again, abideth forever.
Abideth forever.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so, we abideth forever. Yehukin and Moshiach, Mark 11:24. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever you desire when you pray, believe that you receive them, and you shall have them. And you shall have them. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Also, I want to read this in your hearing. Always keep this as an important warning in your ruach. When belief is broken down, the foundation of your spiritual life gives way, and the entire structure of your experience with Abba Yah falls. You have to understand the enemy is just like a dragon. A dragon does not consume its prey until it is ash. It does not eat anything that is really whole. It has to ash it over, make it ash, and then it consumes it. That's the way the enemy does. He's after us because he's after the most precious thing we could ever have, and that is our belief in Abba Yah and in his instructions.
Right.
Because in his instructions leads us to believe and trust in Yahusha al-Mashiach. It leads us to believe in Yahusha al-Mashiach. So the enemy does not care about how much money we have. He doesn't care about what we have or what we don't have. But what he does care about is your belief, my belief. Do I believe enough to make myself vulnerable before Abba Yah and his son Yahusha? Do I believe enough to where I am really going to be a witness in every area of my life? Because remember, when your belief is broken down, the foundation of your ruach or your spiritual life gives way. And the entire structure of your experience with Abba Yah falls. Now, many of us may not believe it, but let me tell you something. Every day he's chipping away or trying to chip away at our belief. He's finding something every day to come at us with so that we will not believe. And you have to understand there's a certain way we're supposed to believe. You just can't believe the way you want to. I just can't believe the way I want to. I just can't say, well, I'm going to believe this, but I'm not going to take that. No, and especially when we can research, and I'm not talking about in the traditions of men, I'm talking about when you can research it from the Torah, and it is breathed by the Ruach Kodesh, and you can stand on it. And I'm not talking about 2 or 3 people, and I'm talking about this is a witness. Because see, you can't have a witness unless you have the Ruach Kodesh already in your Ruach. That's how we're able to witness, and that's how we're able to really confirm what it is we're accepting and what it is we're rejecting. Are you following me?
Yes.
It's important for us to understand that. But you have to understand the enemy is doing everything he can to make us walk away from our belief system. And if we don't walk completely away from it, he wants us to tailor it to fit our agenda. You can't tailor what he's already fixed because it's already perfect. What has to be done is we have to line up and we have to come in and set ourselves in that position. But don't ever try to tailor it to fit your way. Because the moment we start tailoring and cutting what we did not fix, we're going to find ourselves in trouble because you can't tailor. So what ends up happening, you become a law to yourself and you begin to create your own structure and your own way of life outside of his truth. And you have to be careful because understand, there is a spirit of deception. And the enemy every day is trying to find a way to deceive us and to destroy our belief. And we've got to make sure we maintain our belief in him and never allow it to destroy our foundation so that our experience with him does not ever fade away. Because each one of us have had to have an experience with him in order for us to be where we are today. But you don't want that experience to fade away. One thing I've learned about Abba Yah is that experience, it doesn't have to be a one-time experience. You can experience his presence. You can experience him more than once. You can experience him. And that has to be a hunger that's on the inside of us. You have to understand something. We have a Savior that can be felt. Yes, he can. He can be felt. You can feel him. You can sense his presence. You know when his presence is there. That's relationship.
Right.
And you know when his presence isn't there. So we need to understand you got to guard your belief. You have to guard your belief in his Torah, his instructions. Because the enemy would love nothing or have nothing more than to destroy us using our belief against us. How could he do that? make us stop believing. And it is so.
It is so.
And it is so. All right. Leviticus chapter 11, verses 13 through 22. And it reads, excuse me. And it shall come to pass, if you listen carefully to my commandments, which I command you this day, to Ahava Yahuwah your power, to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. That's the area. Those three words were replaced with the word mind. Those three words were replaced with the word mind. So when you look at this is where you're supposed to really exemplify your Ahava for Yahuwah. From your heart and with your soul, which is your total being, which is who you are. That I will give you the rain of your land in its due season, the first rain and the latter rain, that you may gather in your corn and your wine and your oil. And I will send grass in your fields for your cattle, that you may eat and be full. Take heed to yourselves, that your heart be not deceived, and you turn aside and serve other power and worship them. Every verse that we have read from, and this is why I have this, because it's a warning. Every time we read this and every time we listen to this, you have to understand, warnings do not come unless it is necessary.
That's right.
We're being warned. Why? Because it is. If we don't take heed, we can be deceived. Don't ever think you can't be deceived. Because the moment you start believing you can't be deceived, that's when deception waits right there. For that gatekeeper to open up that door. As soon as that door is opened up, boom. Now you'll be deceived. And deception is one of those things. If people knew they were deceived, they would admit it. But when people are deceived, they won't admit it because they don't believe they're deceived. They're not going to admit it. That's why we have to take heed to ourselves, that our hearts be not deceived. And we turn aside and serve other power and worship them. And Yahuwah's wrath be ignited against us. And he shut up Shemayim, that there be no rain, and the land yield not her fruit, unless you perish quickly from off the great land which Yahuwah gives you. Therefore you shall lay up these my words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be as frontlets between your eyes, to focal, to bind to the mind. You bind it to the mind, but it has to be in your heart and in your soul. It has to be a part of you. This is our life. This is our lifestyle. This is not a religion. It is a lifestyle. And this is why every day of our lives when we wake up, we ought to appreciate him and give him Todah for not just looking at it as being a religion. See, because even if people walk away and don't believe it, you still are accountable for it. And you're going to pay for when you walk away, you're going to pay for it. Just like you will get rewarded for living by it.
Right.
So we've got to maintain our consistency. And it is so.
It is so.
We have to. And you shall teach them your children, speaking of them when you sit in your bed, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. I mean, this thing is 24/7. And you shall write them upon the doorposts of your bed and upon your gates. Always live by it in your home. That your days may be multiplied in the days of your children in the land which Yahuwah was sworn to your fathers to give them, as the days of Shemayim upon the earth. 22, for you shall carefully keep all these commandments which I command you, to do them, to Ahava Yahuwah your power, to walk in all his halakha, and to cling unto him. Verse 23, one word to sum it up, victory. We will have the victory at all times, no matter what situation we find ourselves in, and I believe that with my whole heart, that we will have the victory. I will have the victory. You will have the victory, no matter where we are, as long as we walk in the truth. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. I believe that. I believe. And it is so.
And it is so.
All right. We're going to do our declaration, and then we're going to do our close. A declaration that Abiyah gave to me for us as a people, and we know it to be true because we need to be a God all over. Not just in our cities and not just in our towns, but as a nation of people, as children of power. It is imperative that we be there, unified. And it is so.
And it is so.
And is so. And it is so. Repeat with me, Abba Yah, in the name of Yahusha,
In the name of Yahushua,
Amashiach.
Hamashiach,
We subdue ignorance
we subdue ignorance
with Torah knowledge.
with Torah knowledge.
And through this knowledge
And through this knowledge
of Torah truth,
of Torah truth,
we claim healing,
we claim healing,
shalom,
shalom,
deliverance,
deliverance,
and salvation.
and salvation.
We decree
We decree
Torah truth
Torah truth
in the lives
in the lives
of your people,
of your people,
our people,
our people.
Yasrael.
Yasrael.
We unite
We unite
not to fight
not to fight
each other,
each other,
but the enemy
but the enemy
of our belief.
of our belief.
But the enemy of our belief.
Of our belief.
That's where our fight is, not with each other and yourself.
And it is so.
It's not my fight. And it is so. All right, let us bow before our King and let us recite this. This will seal our praise, our worship, and even our confessions. And it is so.
And it is so.
May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before you,
be desirable before you,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before you,
be desirable before you,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
And it is so.
And it is so.
We have just recited Tehillim 19 and 15, and it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. You may be seated as we go into the scrolls on this great day. Once again, I pray everyone had a prosperous night and had a restful night. I know I did. I rested well, and it is so.
And it is so.
I woke up thinking about the greatness of Abba Yah and just looking over the different things as we turn our attention to the book of Shema, chapter 29. We're in chapter 29. As I will do a recap of what we talked about on last night, we talked about the priestly garments and the importance of it. This week, our theme is Tetzaveh. You shall command. And he gave them the command on what the priests were to wear and how they were to conduct themselves in their attire. Once again, the most important thing for us to understand that that the attire represented, excuse me, it was symbolic of something. Number one, when they had the ephod on, when they had the breastplate on, the breastplate had the 12 stones, which were the 12 stones of Yasrael. And the priest was to wear it over his heart. Not only that, but it was made of pure gold. No additives, no other metals, all gold. And their colors were blue and white and purple. Royal colors. And so when they wore this, the whole purpose of wearing the attire was so that they would be able to present themselves and represent the order of Abba Yah. In other words, this is also showing us a depiction of we can't just wear any type of attire. Are you following me?
Yes.
Now, with that being said, many people think, well, now do I have to come and do I have to wear this? In other words, you have to be dressed appropriate. Those of us that are in leadership position really have to be careful and really be conscious of what we put on. Are you following me?
Yes.
You just can't come up with no anything on and no anything upon you. If you notice, they had no crosses on them.
That's right.
They had no cross on them. What did they have on them? They had a breastplate that bore the 12 stones of Yasrael. They had the 2 stones that sat upon their shoulders with the 12 tribes, 6 on each shoulder. Are you following me?
Yes.
And each one of these, that represented a burden. Now you have to understand, not a bad burden, but it represented them remembering and always keeping it before them so that they can always keep this before Abba Yah. Then on their ephod, which was like a blue tunic, they had the gold bells and the pomegranates, which always made a sound. So the attire was to be perfect.
Right.
And this is what they had to wear. They could not wear whatever they wanted.
That's right.
The entire chapter of Shema, chapter 29, verses 1 through 46, is devoted to the instructions for the consecration of Haran and his sons to the priesthood. It is not enough that the priests be correctly dressed. Moshe must follow them for ministry, or he must set them apart for ministry. You have to have a set-apart life. You just can't do any and everything. It is important that we understand, once again, we ought to be presented to Abba Yah.
That's right.
Are you following me?
Yes.
And this is one of the key things. If you ever really want to know if a leader is a real leader, check how they view the children of Yisrael. You have to understand, it's the hireling that will run off and leave them.
That's right.
But it's the true shepherd or the true priest that will stand there because they understand their responsibility to intercede on behalf of the children of Yisrael. Are y'all with me this Saturday?
Yes.
It is important that we understand that. Now, the Ibram verb means to be kadesh, be sanctified, be set apart. Kadesh on the turban, which we read in chapter 28, verses 36 to 37, must be matched by the kadesh of the heart. In other words, you had to have from the crown of your head to the sole of your feet, everything had to be a cod.
That's right.
We were talking last night as we were taking Brother Amaziah back. We were talking about how when you get into martial arts and when you get into that style, you have to be one with your whole body. Isn't it amazing that even in that you have to have discipline and that your body has to be a cod?
That's right.
From your gut all the way to your head and all of this. So if we have to be a cod with that, then we also have to be a cod, are you following me?
Yes.
With the things that Abba Yah has given unto us as his people, especially when we're in positions.
That's right.
Now once again, he says, these are the things, this emphasis permeates the chapter from beginning to end because he gives explicit instructions on how to wear it and how they were supposed to conduct their lives. Once again, the most important thing to remember with this is that Yisrael was always supposed to be on the hearts
That's right.
of the high priest.
Right.
Who is our high priest now? Yahusha. Where is he at? He is on the right hand of the Abba. Doing what? Making intercession for us. Does that mean that now we are not responsible? Absolutely not.
Right.
We are still responsible and obligated to pray. Are you following me?
Yes.
We are responsible and obligated to pray. The image here describes the characteristics associated with a set-apart Savior. Without blemish, he was perfect. Unleavened, separates. To wash, cleanness. An anointing oil meant to empower. So they were being empowered to do what they were called and set apart to do. This is why it is important that we understand the order and understand the assignment,
That's right.
the mission. Because it was not just for them to go in with beautiful or yapa attire on. It was for them to understand they had to present themselves as a perfect leader before Abba Yah to pray for the children of Yisrael. If you can't have somebody pray for you, something is wrong.
Right.
That's right.
I'm going to say that again. If you can't have somebody that's going to pray for you, but the key to that is always believing in the person you're asking to pray for you.
Right.
That's right.
Because you have to understand, if you don't believe what's being prayed for you, it's not going to happen.
Right.
See, because the only thing that we're commissioned to do is to pray for you. You got to believe it. And you got to act upon your belief.
That's right.
You don't act upon it, you ain't going to get it. Are you understanding?
Yes.
A person that's hungry and thirsty doesn't just sit there and say, boy, I sure am hungry. Ooh, I sure am hungry. Boy, I am thirsty, thirsty, thirsty. ridiculous, doesn't it?
Yes.
For somebody to stand there and do that. Well, you have to understand also, it sounds ridiculous for somebody to pray for you and then you don't believe that what you asked them to pray for you for.
Right.
Just common sense. Just common sense. Are you following me?
Yes.
It's important that we understand their responsibility was to pray, but the responsibility yet fell upon Israel or Yisrael to do what they were supposed to do. Now watch this. Prayer or belief without works is dead. If you pray for somebody and they don't believe it, guess what? Your prayer will not override their belief.
That's right.
It can't do it. Because you have to understand, prayer was never geared to hijack people
That's right.
or take people over. That's not what prayer does. That's witchcraft.
Right.
Prayer is the communication with Abba Yah. The request is made, but now you have to operate upon the request in belief. I believe that if they say, I'm going to go get it. If they say it's done, I'm going to go get it. If they say that this is going to be the way it's supposed to be done, then I believe it and I'm going to go after it. Most of the time, we're too self-centered. I'm going to say that again. Most of the time, we're too self-centered.
That's right.
We do things our own way. So when we do things our own way and we say, or we're told, okay, look, prayer has already been made for you in this area. All you have to do is respond unto that which has been prayed for you. But you know, we, a lot of times as a people, this right here is hard as a brick. It is.
That's right.
Because we can't get beyond who we are. So we don't listen to instructions.
That's right.
Are you following me?
Yes.
Their responsibility was to pray. But the responsibility of Yisrael was to obey and to follow the instructions. Still talking about the same thing. But you have to understand, once again, we don't want to just get caught up in the attire and not understand why the attire was given.
That's right.
It was for them to always remember and carry the burden of Yisrael on their hearts.
That's right.
Always carry it so they would never forget. I said it on last night. You have what is called muscle memory. Your muscles remember certain workouts. So when you go to pick up those weights, whether they're 10, 25, 50, 75, whatever it is, when you go to pick it up again, your arms remember. Because you can feel the muscles. You can feel them start tensing. You can feel all in here. When you lift it, it's like your muscles say, okay, I got to get ready for this again, especially if you slack up from it.
That's right.
But if you do it continually, you remember, and your muscles just fall in line, and you start seeing them what? Develop.
That's right.
They start developing. Why? Because it's an action. It is what, that is why you exercise. That is why you use weight, because that weight is a resistance, and it helps to build. It's the same way. Now remember, once again, this is why I believe they put this on. Because it was for them to remember even when they took it off.
Right.
But they were never to take it off while they were serving.
That's right.
But now you have to understand, when you're not serving, does that mean now you don't remember? Absolutely not. You're supposed to always remember and keep this upon your heart.
That's right.
Never just up here.
That's right.
Because when it's just up here, you forget about it, and it ain't here. You be like, who? That was who? Who was that? Oh, I forgot all about them. I didn't even remember them. I forgot all about them. That's not what we want to do. We want to always remember and keep our mishpachah upon our heart. That does not mean just your immediate. That means the children of power.
That's right.
We always want to bend our knee and pray for them. Because as long as they're outside of truth, they will never be able to experience Abiyah in a great way. It will always be judgment upon their lives. It will always be judgment over them. This is why we continue to pray. So that they can come in the truth, so that their eyes will be open, their ears will be open.
That's right.
And their hearts will be able to come into an understanding. You have to understand, when you have people that have been steeped in Christianity for a very long time, that's all they know, that's all they want to know, because that's all they were taught to know.
That's right.
You have to pray for the understanding to be open to receive the instructions of truth.
That's right.
That's right.
Because all of us didn't come right in when we were told. When we were given the information, we didn't all come right on in. Some of us took longer than others. But then when we did come in, we had no issues. Because we were ready to receive it. But you better believe somebody was praying for us.
That's right.
I believe that. Number one, Yahushua was praying for us because he always prays, but don't nobody else pray. But that doesn't mean that, once again, that nobody else was praying. I believe there were other people praying as well. Are y'all following me? In other words, don't ever exempt yourself from praying for the Mishpachah. Always pray. Never ever stop that. To ordain. We find in verse 9, consecrate. And this verse is not to just sanctify, but ordain. The Ibram is literally to fill the hand up. The ordained are those whose hands are full of the things involved in doing Yahuwah's work. So as we continue to read, let us look at this and let us really see what it is that Abba Yah desires to convey to us in this chapter. So as we read it, we just don't get caught up. Oh, that's what they wore and that was that. No, understand they were to wear that, but understand the actions that were to follow while they wore it.
That's right.
The importance of them wearing it in truth.
That's right.
See, because you can have the garb on, but if you ain't walking in truth and you have your own mission and you got your own thing going on, you're not going to see the power of Abba Yah operating in your life or in the life of anybody else. Where does that go?
Right.
And so it's important that we understand. But Haran and his sons are consecrated. And this is what we're going to take up in chapter 29. Once again, as we look and as we continue to see, let us see the heart of Abba Yah as he continues to show himself unto us, even in this. Let us see ourselves. Let us see ourselves. I always make it personal. Make it personal, because when you make it personal, it is more real.
Right.
I know, to me personally. I don't read it and say them, I say me.
That's right.
Because this is personal. And when you make it personal, you're able to see it from a different perspective. And it is so. All right, let us read. Let us start with read the first 6 verses. Chapter 29. Uh, 176.
Verse 6 and
29. Verse 6. Once again, that's Shema, which is Exodus chapter 29. And we're going to read the first 6:4.
And this is what you shall do to them to sanctify them for ministering to me as priests. Take you 1 young bull and 2 rams without blemish, and matzah and cakes mixed with oil, and unleavened wafers anointed with oil. You shall make them of wheat flour. You shall put them in 1 basket and bring them in the basket with the bull and the 2 rams. And Aharon and his sons you shall bring to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and you shall wash them with mayim. Then you shall take the garments, put the tunic on Aharon and the robe of the ephod of the breastplate, and gird him with the intricately woven band of the ephod. You shall put the turban on his head, and put the set-apart crown on the turban.
And it is so. Once again, gave him specific instructions. He wasn't supposed to put anything else on there. He didn't tell him to put a cross on there. He didn't tell him to put no other ribbons. He didn't tell him to put anything else on there. Everything was supposed to be put on there that was told to be put on there. Are you following me? Once again, we don't add and we don't take away.
Right.
We follow it exactly the way he said to do it. Now remember, in chapter 27, they were told to bring what? The anointed oil.
That's right.
The anointed oil. So the children of Yisrael still had something to do and had even in this. Because they had to make sure they had the anointed oil. So you follow me? So once again, you have to understand, this was a thing that Abba Yah had the whole nation of Yisrael involved in. They may not have been there at the consecration or at that close up, but they still had a part. Are you following me? In other words, I'm saying we should never just walk on the outside looking in. You should always want to be up close and personal. You should always want to be in that place where you understand everything that's going on. Are you following me?
Yes.
Even though you may believe that it does not have anything to do with you. Because understand, everything that happens in here concerning Torah and concerning us as a people, it is for us to know.
That's right.
And it is so.
It is also.
All right, let's read 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Verse 7.
Mm-hmm.
And you shall take the anointing oil, pour it on his head, and anoint him. And you shall bring his sons and put tunics on them. And you shall gird them with sashes, Aharon and his sons, and put the turbans on them. The priesthood shall be theirs for an everlasting decree.
Mm-hmm.
So you shall consecrate Aharon and his sons. You shall also have a bull brought before the tabernacle of the congregation. And Aharon and his sons shall put their hands on the head of the bull. Then you shall kill the bull before Yahuwah, on the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. You shall take some of the blood of the bull and put it on the horns of the altar with your finger, and pour all the blood inside the base of the altar. And it is so.
And it is so. Once again, you have to understand, blood had to be shed. Blood had to be shed.
Right.
Now look where they put it on the altar to offer it up to Abba Yah. Because remember, there was nothing covering them. So there had to be blood shed. Now look at this again. I'm looking at it from two perspectives. Now, and you shall take the anointing oil, pour it on his head, and anoint him. This is where you get anointing from, but everybody is not to be anointed. You understand it?
Yes.
Everybody is not supposed to have oil on them. Especially, and I'm going to show you why, and then we're going to see later on, there was a certain oil that was placed on them. It just was not just any kind of oil that was placed upon them. Somebody may say, but if you're praying for somebody, do you anoint them with oil? Yes, you do anoint them, but you don't use the oil that they use for around them to anoint people. There's two types of oil. I believe there's two types of anointing oil. The oil that they had that had the different smells in it because it had to be created a certain way. Then you shall bring his sons and put tunics on them. And you shall gird them with sashes, Haran and his sons, and put the turbans on them. The priesthood shall be theirs for an everlasting law. So you shall consecrate Haran and his sons. Once again, this was a consecration, and this is what they were supposed to do. Once again, it had nothing with them wanting to do whatever they wanted or how they wanted to be done. It had to be done a specific way.
Right.
You understand?
Yes.
You shall have, and you shall also have the bull brought before the tabernacle of the congregation. And Haran and his sons shall put their hands on the head of the bull. In other words, this was a representation of them exchanging their life. You follow what I'm saying? Basically, you could say that when they laid hands on the bull, they were basically, let me say this the right way. As they put their hands on the bull, it was an exchange. I'll put it like that. It was his life for their life. And so when the bull was sacrificed and that blood was placed there, because remember this bull was innocent. No sin was upon the bull's life. So the bull represented the sacrificial offering. And so in order for them to be consecrated and to be in this position, there had to be bloodshed and they had to be covered. And that's why the bull was used. Now we have Yahusha, which is our high priest, who also was a sacrificial lamb, and that covered us. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And that's the way this works. The blood. Because if they would have gone in there without the shedding of blood, they wouldn't have lived.
That's right.
Right.
They would not have made it. That's why there had to be an offering. Now listen, then you shall kill the bull before Yahuwah by the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. You shall take some of the blood of the bull and put it on the horns of the altar with your finger, and pour all the blood beside the base of the altar. It's an offering. That's the only thing that would have allowed them to be able to truly be consecrated. And you shall take all the fat that covers the entrails, the fatty lobe attached to the liver, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them, and burn them on the altar for a shalom offering. That was the peace offering. That's why we don't eat the fat, because it's a shalom offering.
That's right.
And you shall take the fat and cover it, and then watch this, and burn them on the altar. So all that was burned up. But the flesh of the bull with its skin and its dung, you shall burn it. Because you have to understand, whenever something was dying or killed, you shall put fire outside the camp, and it is a sin offering. Whenever something is loses its life, the number one thing is that it urinates and it has a bowel movement. Because unless that thing it fasts and it, and you don't feed it, but they had to keep it strong, so they had to keep feeding it. But whenever something is the life or its life is taken, that's how it does. The body excretes. It has a bowel movement and it urinates. And this is why they had to burn it, and they had to make preparation for that, so they had to burn it off. And it was a sin offering unto Abba Yah. Outside of the camp. Not in the camp, outside of the camp. Sin offering is done outside the camp, just like Yahusha was hung on the tree outside the camp. Ibram 13 and 12. Once again, many of people, when you say hung, the first thing people think is that he had a noose upon his neck, which is not so.
That's right.
He did not have a noose around his neck. He was hung upon a tree, not a cross. Contrary to popular belief, it was not a cross, it was an executioner's thing.
That's right.
So, once again, when you look at the way he was hung, he was not hung, once again, with a noose on his neck.
That's right.
But he was nailed up on that tree, not hung. And this is where a lot of people err, because they say, when you say hung, that they believe that Yahusha had a noose around his neck. He did not have a noose around his neck. That is wrong. That is not right. And it is so.
It is so.
That is wrong. All right. Now, let us look at 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19.
You shall also take 1 ram, and Aharon and his sons shall put their hands on the head of the ram.
Mm-hmm.
You shall kill the ram, and you shall take the blood and sprinkle it all around the altar.
Mm-hmm.
Then you shall cut the ram in pieces, wash his entrails and his legs, put them with its pieces with his head. You shall burn the whole ram on the altar. It is a burnt offering to the Lord, a sweet aroma, an offering made by fire to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
You shall also take the other ram, and Aharon and his sons shall put their hands on his head of the ram.
And it is so. Once again, the bull's life for theirs. There was an exchange, and it was sprinkled, and you shall kill the ram, and you shall take its blood and sprinkle it all around the altar. You shall sprinkle it around the altar. And it is so.
It is.
And it was the whole thing burnt. And you shall burn the whole ram on the altar. It is a burnt offering to Yahuwah. It is a sweet aroma, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. That was symbolic of their lives being offered up unto Abba Yah.
That's right.
That was their lives being offered up. But because they were not in a place to really give their lives, that's why the animal was the substitute. The animal was the substitute. Then you shall cut the ram in pieces, wash its entrail and its legs, and put them in the pieces, and with its head. And you shall burn the whole ram on the altar. It is a burnt offering to Yahuwah. It is a sweet aroma, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. Now you shall also take the other ram, and Haran and his sons shall put their hands on the head of the ram. Once again, without putting the hands on the ram's or the bull's head, the sacrifice would not qualify for sin. Hence, this is why we see Yehukanan the immerser putting his hands on Yahusha as the high priest when he immersed him in the Jordan River. Matthew 3:16. It's important that we understand that, once again, contrary to popular belief and contrary to how these things look, it is important that we understand that the animal had to die in order for them to be consecrated and ordained in the position they're in. Yahusha had to die. So for everybody that's saying he didn't have to die and that they do not have to have him in their lives, you walk in error. Argue with the scrolls. Because without the shedding of blood, there would be no remission or forgiveness of sin. And it is so. All right, let's read 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. 6 verses.
Exodus 29:20. Then shalt thou kill the ram and take of his blood and put it upon the tip of the right hand of Aaron, and upon the tip of the right hand of his sons, and upon the thumb of the right hand, and upon the great toe of their right foot, and sprinkle the blood upon the altar round about. Thou shalt take the blood that is upon the altar, and the anointing oil and sprinkle it upon Aaron, and upon his garments, and upon his sons, and upon the garments of his sons with him. And he shall be hallowed in his garments, and his sons garments with him. Also, thou shalt take of them the ram, the fat, and the rump, and the fat that covers the inwards, and the caul of the liver, and 2 kidneys, and the fat that is upon them, and the right shoulder, for the ram of consecration. And 1 loaf of bread, and 1 cake of oil bread, and 1 wafer out of the basket of unleavened bread, before the Lord. And thou shalt put all in the hands of Aaron, and in the hands of his sons, and shalt wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. And I shall receive them of their hands and burn them upon the altar for a burnt offering, for a sweet savor before the Lord. It is an offering made by fire unto the Lord. And it is so.
And it is so. Now, once again, it's important to understand everything that was done had a meaning. Everything that was done has a meaning. The spiritual connection is right earlobe to the mind, the right thumb to the heart, and the right big toe to the instincts. The 3 centers are the pivotal points of the body. We were talking about the body last night. How people pay more attention when it comes to the martial arts or to the arts on how to be one and make their mind one with their gut and all of that. What about being one with the Ruach Kodesh or one with the Torah? See, that's one of the things as a people sometimes we struggle with because we don't know how to be one. We don't know how to connect really with the Torah or with the scrolls because we're so busy trying to connect with everything else. I believe that when you are disciplined and there's a discipline in your life, then you don't have to struggle with that. You don't have to do yoga. See, because yoga is one of the main things that people push that brings you into oneness and to discipline. That's not true. What are you trying to be disciplined with? And who are you trying to be disciplined to?
Right.
Who are you trying to be one with? Because you can't do it outside of truth.
That's right.
You can't. So it's important once again to understand discipline comes from not just reading the scrolls, but executing action with the scrolls.
That's right.
Accepting. You have to understand to accept something as an action.
That's right.
To accept advice or instruction is followed with an action. Because if you believe it, then you're going to respond to it. If somebody says go to the door and you just stand to the door and never put your hand out to open that door to go in, guess what? That's a lack of belief because you don't believe that the door is going to open for you. So it's the same thing with instructions. If you're instructed to do something and you don't follow those instructions, then you don't believe. You don't believe. You don't believe. So once again, it is important for us to understand the akkad that is supposed to follow. Everything we are reading today is showing us how the Abba works in its smallest. And I say small, and I don't mean to take away from it. But this is just a portion of what he's showing us, the importance of following his instructions. And that everything represented something. You cannot be a leader or a teacher unless your heart is in it. You can't be a leader or a teacher or a guide unless your heart is in it. If your heart is not in it and your will is not in it, and you are truly not in it from your head to the sole of your feet, you are not going to truly give it your all.
That's right.
And you're not going to invest in it.
That's right.
You won't. Because you'll find every reason why not to invest.
That's right.
It costs. It costs you your life. Yes, it does. It costs you your life. It costs you your life to be a believer. I mean, y'all believe that?
Yes.
Yes, it does. It costs you your life. So that means if it costs me my life, I can't do what everybody else does.
That's right.
I can't go where everybody else goes. I can't say what everybody else says because I'm a set-apart person.
That's right.
I'm set apart for his use. Now, you have to understand when I say that, that's for us because we are a peculiar people. Because you have to understand we are all royalty. And because we are all royalty and we are all of the royal priesthood, talking about all of us that are a part of the 12 tribes, that means you have to be different. You can't do everything everybody else does.
That's right.
You cannot. This is why he came and brought us back to him, because we are special to him. So you can't do anything and everything you want to do. You have to maintain your consistency. And once again, as we see the consecration of Haran and his sons, you got to understand, so are we consecrated as a set-apart people. And that's why we have to follow the instructions in the manner that he's given them unto us. You can't go and make up your own instructions. We can't make up our own way. This is why you have a lot of camps that are at odds with one another, because everybody has their own way. And I'm not just talking about camps. I'm talking about people that say they follow the truth, but we can't never come to an agreement on anything. At times. You get 5 people in a room and you start talking about one subject, and you will see that each one of those individuals will have a different view. Something is wrong with that.
That's right.
Especially when we can't come to the agreement, yes, this is my view, but let's see what the scroll says about it.
Right.
And let's not dispute what the scroll says. Let me tell you something. I've had 2 to 3 Bibles up here. Bibles. And I have the Abrahamic Covenant scrolls. And each one has a different perspective on truth. Some call the turban a hat. Some call it something else. So when you are looking from it from 2 and 3 different perspectives, and we can't come to an agreement and say, hold up, y'all, that's their perspective. But let's move everybody's perspective out of the way, and let's just go with what it says. Let's just take the butt-naked truth of what it says without anybody's interpretation and anybody's perspective. And let's go from there. Because what you do is you alleviate everybody else's opinion. Now we all have to rely on the Ruach Kodesh. And if we all plugged in, we all going to come up with the same answer. We will come with the same answer. We won't come up with this opinion or that opinion. We will come up with the same answer. This is why we have to be filled with the Ruach Kodesh. Now understand, because I know a lot of people run on a tangent. Well, she's telling us we can't. I'm not telling you can't look at other people's research. But what I am saying, the greatest researcher and the greatest one to call upon and know the answer is the Ruach Kodesh. That's without saying. Because when it's all said and done, she is not going to give it to us from anybody's perspective, but from that perspective of her relationship with Abba Yah.
That's right.
And that's what we are supposed to know. So when it's all said and done, we have to always understand when we are getting information from that what has been researched by others, for that what has been coined or even labeled as truth, you still have to look at it and say, that's from what you researched. But when it's all said and done, let's go to the Ruach Kodesh. And let's deal with it from there. Are you following me?
Yes.
Because we have a lot of scholars, and I'm not knocking the scholars because I enjoy their teachings. I enjoy the information that I get. But then there's a time that I have to pull away from all that information and go on my face and say, now, Abba Yah, show me. Show me. Show me through the Ruach Kodesh so that I can understand and know and be able to validate whether this is authentic. Because you have to understand everybody's research is founded upon somebody else's research, upon somebody else's research. That's the way it's done. We understand it.
Yes.
And so I have no issue with research and other people's information because I use it. But when we use it as a battering ram, that's when we have issues. But the most important thing is for us to look at what is being said. The attire brings us into a consecrated place with Abba Yah. But if the attire is the only thing consecrated, and we forget that we are supposed to be consecrated and set apart, then what happens? Once again, our experience falls.
Right.
That's right.
Because what are we basing it upon? What are we basing our belief upon? Our belief is based upon our walk with Him and through our understanding of the Torah. Am I making sense?
Yes.
That's important. That's very important. See, because I'm chasing after Abba Yah.
That's right.
That's what I'm chasing after. That's who I'm chasing after.
Right.
Let me put that the right way. I'm chasing after Him through Yahusha, our Mashiach, in the Ruach HaKodesh. So it's important that we understand all of this. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. All right, let us finish reading, please.
Verse 27,
Mm-hmm.
6 verses.
Yes.
Verse 27 reads, And from the ram of the consecration you shall consecrate the rest of the wave offering which is waved, on the thigh of the heave offering which is raised, of that which is of Haran, and that which is of his, which is for his sons.
Mhm.
It shall be from the children of Yisrael for Haran and his sons by a statute forever. For it is a heave offering. It shall be a heave offering from the children of Yisrael, from the sacrifices of their shalom offerings, that is their heave offering to Yahuwah. And the set apart garments of Haran shall be his sons after him, to be anointed in them and to be consecrated in them. That the son who becomes Kohen in the place shall put them on for 7 days, which he enters the tabernacle of the congregation to minister in the set apart place. And you shall take the ram of the consecration and boil its flesh in the set apart place. Then Aaron and his sons shall eat the flesh of the ram, and the lechem that is in the basket by the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And it is so.
And it is so. And they were to be partakers. They were to be partakers. So you cannot be involved in this and not be a partaker.
That's right.
And you have to understand the wave offering or the heave offering was also represented a praise. How do you offer something to Abba Yah without praise?
Right.
How do you go in there and just be so clinical or technical and you can't even open your mouth and say, Toda Abba Yah? Or you go in, you have to understand, I don't believe they took it lightly. I don't believe that they stood before Abba Yah giggling and playing and laughing. But I do believe at some point in time they smiled. I do believe at some point in time they had to say, Abba Yah, we told you for giving us this assignment. Because you're not going to make me believe that we are descendants of a people that were just clinical and had no sense of praise in them. I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
That's right.
And we are praisers. Just play somebody's favorite music. Oh, that's a jam there. They may not do nothing but do this right here. But they're going to do something symbolic of them what? Getting it in and getting a little praise on.
Right.
So you have to understand the connection here. They were a part. Everything about this says involvement.
Right.
We cannot walk in this and not be involved. You cannot detach yourself from this and just look at it from an intellectual or a part of information. Because when you do that, you miss the greatest experience you can ever experience with Him. And that's truly having a connection with Him. This is important for us because once you have to understand one thing about Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom of Great Belief Ministries, we don't do things like everybody else.
That's right.
We don't, and I never will. Because I don't believe that you ought to take something from somebody and not say Torah.
That's right.
That's just being unthankful. When you have an attitude of somebody who took something from you and didn't say Torah, would you like it if somebody took something from you and didn't say Torah? Yes or no? Right. Would you? No, because you'd be like, hold up, now what I do to you? What's the problem? You know, what's between me and you that you can't just say Torah? Once again, I don't believe there was a lot of chatter going on, but I do believe that there was a thank you going on, that there was a Torah going on. Because you have to understand, this right here was setting up the structure for them to be able to present gifts, for them to be able to have a relationship with him. Remember, he said, you're coming out of Mitzrayim. Why? So you could what? Serve me. He didn't bring us out of the situation we were in. He didn't bring us out of slavery and out of the world for us not to serve him. Praise is a part of your servitude to him.
That's right.
Yes, it is. Whether we know how to or not, it's a part of the servitude. And everybody knows how to praise.
That's right.
Everybody does. Because when you say Torah, that's also a form of praise.
That's right.
When somebody does something great or does something that to show their appreciation or what have you, say Torah.
Right.
It's important that we understand that. Once again, the importance is understanding involvement and participation. They didn't just give and all this took place and Abiyah didn't give back. See, he's a continual giver.
That's right.
He's a continual giver. They sacrificed, they did, and then when it was all said and done, he said, now I want you to sit down and partake, because I know you're hungry. Hallelujah. How can you not get involved and become a part of that with your soul? We have soul,
That's right.
and with that soul comes a little rhythm. So I believe around them would sing too. I do. I believe there was some singing going on. Let everything that have breath praise ye Yah.
That's right.
Everything. If you have breath, then you are supposed to praise him.
That's right.
So I don't believe they was just in there offering up. It's just some one day and here we in all this blood and it don't smell all that good. It's just this. I'll be glad when this is over with. Oh no, I do not believe that whatsoever. I believe that they were just as in. I believe they were involved with Abiyah like he was involved with them. If you understand what I'm saying? Yes. They were involved. They understood their part in this participation. That they were participants. And when you are a participant of something, you get involved. You know how people play games and they get what we said, dog, boy, they into that. You want some of this? I'll do something later. You don't even know what they offer you. They could be offering you a plate of boo-boo. You don't know. You ain't never looked up to see what it is they're offering you. Because you're so engulfed in what you're doing. We can get involved with those things and outside things, but we ought to be so engulfed and involved with the things of Abiyah that when the world tries to present us something on a silver platter, we say, no, thank you.
That's right.
I'll pass. I don't want it. I have who I want and what I want. This is enough. You're following me today?
Yes.
This is important to us. Very important to us. As a royal priesthood.
That's right.
As the children of power.
That's right.
And it is so.
It is so.
All right, let's read.
Starting at verse
32.
6 verses.
Mm-hmm.
And Aharon and his sons shall eat the flesh of the ram and the lechem that is in the basket by the door of the tent of meeting. And they shall eat those offerings with which the atonement was made, to ordain them, to set them apart. But let a stranger not eat them, because they are set apart.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 34. And if any of the flesh of the ordination offerings or of the lechem be left over until the morning, then you shall burn up what is left over.
Mm-hmm.
It is not eaten because it is set apart. And so you shall do to Aharon and his sons according to all I have commanded you. 7 days you shall ordain them. Verse 36. And prepare a bull each day as a sin offering for atonement. You shall cleanse the altar when you make atonement for it, and you shall anoint it to set it apart. Verse 37. For 7 days you shall make atonement for the altar and set it apart. And the altar shall be most set apart. Whatever touches the altar is to be set apart. And it is so.
And it is so. Now, let's look at this, and we're going to come back and look at verse 37. Set apart. And if any of the flesh of the consecration offering or of the lakim remains into the morning, then you shall burn the remainder with fire. It shall not be eaten because it is set apart, just like when we have Peshat. Anything that is not finished, it has to be burned. You cannot eat it, and you cannot put it up. You have to follow the instructions, and you have to understand that's not wasteful.
Right.
When you understand the concept and you understand our instructions, that's not wasteful. But to a mind that is not walking in truth, they look at that as being wasteful. Now, you have to understand, once again, why would I say that? Once again, when you look at the concept of Marcion, he could not understand in the instructions. So when you read this, for people that do not understand truth, they look at this as being wasteful, and they don't understand it. So when you don't understand, you try to apply logic, and you try to apply an answer, when if you don't understand that is the answer, you find yourself confused.
Right.
The answer is obedience. If he say burn it, burn it. I don't care what it is.
That's right.
It's not to be left over. Just like in Peshat, no strangers were to eat the meal because the meal was only for those in Yasarel. And they were circumcised and Sabbath keeping. A lot of time, and especially in the time we live in now, you don't ask questions to try to offend people. But every male has not been circumcised because of the traditions of their families now. It's the truth. You had that going on back in the 80s. Now it's more prevalent because now they call it butchery. But now if a lady has a son, she can basically opt out. There was a time you couldn't opt out if you had your children at the hospital. They automatically were circumcised boys because they said because of the cleanliness that was connected to it. But we understand it's about covenant. Right. So now you got to ask people. And it's not that you're trying to get under people's clothes, but if you're going to take this, you need to be upfront. Have you been circumcised?
Right.
Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Because everybody has not. You cannot assume every male has been circumcised. Not in the day and time we live in. And especially when they're fighting for their rights and they're saying now it is a choice. And so now the parents have to basically say, well, we can't do it because when he gets older, he may not have wanted to be circumcised, which is crazy. But once again, you have to understand the society. Once again, let's keep it in perspective. We are called as a people, males are called to be circumcised.
Right.
So in order to take or partake of these feasts, you have to be circumcised and a keeper of the Sabbath and a keeper of the instructions of Abba Yah. Once again, many of people can't get around these instructions because they feel like, well, we should be able to do what we want to do. We don't understand because it's not for you. If the instructions are not for you, then it makes it harder for those that the instructions are for because they're so deep and steadfast in error. You got to dig them up out of that so they can see this is their way of life too. Are you following me? That's why you got to pray.
That's right.
Abba Yah, give them a heart to see, give them a mind to be able to perceive your truth. Because when it has been propagated and it's been promoted, you don't have to. Or parents take that stand, well, we got to let them get older because we don't want to do something when they get older, they get mad. The only way they will take that mentality is you allow people to put that, promote that or push that on them.
That's right.
When we're supposed to be doing what with our children? When?
Every day.
Every day. So that means that we're not teaching our children Torah. We are not doing what we're supposed to do.
That's right.
Are you following me?
Yes.
Especially if you have children. Are y'all following me today?
Yes.
It's important that we understand that. So once again, you have to be and you have to ask. And so they had to burn it. Now, anyone else doing this would be disqualified and judged severely. So you can't just do anything. Are you following me? It's
Yes.
important that we follow it to the T.
That's right.
And same way now. We have to keep it in the manner that he's told us. You can't just do anything. Once again, that's why you have to understand our lives are set apart lives. And we can't just do anything. We have to follow the instructions. And one of the things that we must never ever put off is when the Ruach HaKodesh is speaking to us. Because she will warn you. She will tell you stop. She will tell you go. Or she will tell you refrain. Are you following me?
Yes.
Yes, she will. She will let you know stop. And if you don't, you're going to pay the consequences. That's when we have an ear to hear her.
That's right.
Relationship. It's about relationship. Relationship. Now, mind you, they were going to be in a position of being able to hear and do what they were called to do in the presence of Abba Yah. So they had to be able to hear. Now, 7 days you shall consecrate them. 7 days you shall consecrate them. And you shall offer a bull every day as a sin offering for atonement. For 7 days they have to do this. You shall cleanse the altar when you make atonement for it, and you shall anoint it to sanctify it. That meant every day there had to be a clean. Now, once again, you have to understand, everything that says here is also for us.
Right.
A lot of times we think that it's okay to go through everyday life. We come in, we go to bed, if you just lay your head down and you don't ever say, Abba Yah, if I've done something today that was not pleasing to you, please forgive me, so that when I lay my head down, I know that I'm laying my head down and I haven't done anything wrong. Or I've repented for it. Do you understand me? When we wake up, rise on that great day, and we rise up and we say, Abba Yah, I appreciate you. I told you for life, health, and strength. And if I said or did something throughout the night or in the middle or even in my sleep, Abba Yah, forgive me. This is not being, what do they call, sin conscious or whatever, to where the church said, now you have a sin complex. No. You want to make sure that every day you are making sure your life is clean before Him.
That's right.
Because there are times, let me tell you something, that what we may believe is acceptable may not necessarily be acceptable to Abba Yah. Are you understanding me?
Yes.
So it's important that we follow in that. Yes, we follow Torah. Every day of our lives, we're doing everything to make sure we are living right. And we're making sure from the rising of the sun to the going down of the same that we don't do anything to offend Him or anybody else. Because do you not understand and know that when you offend your Aki or Cody, if you don't get it right, that's a sin unto you? So offenses are going to come, but woe to the ones it comes from. It's important for us to understand that. That's why when we go to bed at night every day, it ought to be a part of our lifestyle. Not because you've done something wrong, but because you want to make sure you have it. That you have it. Throughout our day. And let me tell you something. Even with our enemies, you still have to be careful how you deal with your enemies. You have to still be careful. So it's important that we understand every day we keep our altar clean. Every day we keep our life clean. And if we got issues with that, something wrong with us. Because I don't know about you, it's nothing wrong with wanting to make sure your life is clean. Are you understanding?
Yes.
Nothing wrong with that. It's important we understand that. Every day you ought to repent. Every day you ought to make sure your slate is clean.
That's right.
And it is so. And it is so. The place of worship of Yahuwah is set apart and not just any altar, so it must be properly anointed and prepared in the name of Yahuwah, because that is what sanctifies it before it can be used. Before it can be used. So if it has any other name, you can't use it. Not rightfully, and you say you walk in truth. It can't be used. If it has IHS on it, it can't be used. Can't be used. So are you following me? It can't be used. It's important. Even touching the altar is a sin if you're not obeying Torah. So we have to be careful once again. If we're not walking in Torah, you have to be careful how you even handle Torah, so you don't be out of order.
That's right.
What may seem simplistic and may seem remedial to somebody else, for people that are coming in truth, they need to know this, because you cannot be trying to go back into church and then following truth.
Right.
You cannot be talking about he's the Christ when he's Yahushua HaMashiach. You can't be talking about he's God and then we're saying he's Yahuwah. And then come back and try to touch or be a part of the consecrated things.
That's right.
You can't. That's one of the things that's important, that when we come out of that way, we need to come out fully. It's like teaching a baby how to walk. Whenever we taught our children how to walk, when they would get back down on their knees because they would get frustrated, we would pick them right back up and say, you're not going to crawl, you're going to walk, because you know how to walk now.
That's right.
There's no reason for you to go back and be trying to crawl. Get up. Because ain't nobody like to be carrying your big old self around. Get them shoes on your feet, and you have to understand what the shoes did was gave them confidence to walk. So when you take the shoes off, they are still able to walk even without the shoes on.
That's right.
So it's important that we understand, even if we're not around our ark and our coat, we still can walk. Even if the Torah is not right with us, it still should be in here.
Right.
So that no matter where we go, we're still able to walk and maintain our consistency.
That's right.
So once again, no, we cannot do that, because when you do that, you put people in a way to where they can get in trouble, because they're trying to still use the consecrated things, because it's not the Torah consecrated. It's consecrated. Consecrated and set apart for who? For his chosen people.
Sorry.
So because it's consecrated, if somebody that is still trying to straddle the fence and use it, it's not going to work, and then they're going to get in trouble. So we can't do that. It's important that we understand that. Very important that you understand that. You can't drive 2 cars at one time.
That's right.
You can't. You're not supposed to.
That's right.
Or you will be breaking natural laws. It's true. You'll be breaking natural laws. You're only supposed to drive one. Even though they have it to where if you wanted to, you could. But you would still be breaking a natural law. You're only supposed to drive one. Cadillacs can drive you. You can sit in the passenger side. But you know that's not supposed to be. Are you following me? That makes people lazy.
That's right.
You sit on the other side and let your car drive you, instead of saying, hey, I need you to take me here. You're going to let your car be in control of you. You're going to relinquish your authority so that a car that is controlled by somebody else can take you where you need to go. You better not go to sleep.
Right.
But you have to understand how society is so trusting of these type of things that now they sanction this as being okay. Not so.
And it's funny, and especially among our people, and even Christian, it's just kind of across the board, how, and even with the concern of women. Now, you don't want, you say the woman can't do it, woman can't, but you let a dumb machine,
Exactly.
you trust it with your life.
Exactly.
It
Exactly.
has no consciousness.
Exactly.
It has all it has is instructions.
Exactly.
There's some man program in it.
Exact. Or woman.
Or
woman programming.
Whoever programming
Mhm.
was. But you trust the machine.
Yeah. Syria with a thing called Siri.
Yeah.
Siri.
And then Siri might get in there and get mad at you and drive you off the cliff. So
Yeah.
that's just what it is. So,
Right. So I mean, all these things, which is ridiculous. Once again, when you run across people, and my mentality has learned to tune people out. I've learned to tune people out, and the reason I've learned to tune people out is because you have to understand something. When you have a relationship with Abiyah and Ruha Kodesh, it doesn't matter what other people say or what other people think. Are you following me? Because see, for every person that says what you shouldn't be doing, then you need to look at the people that have been touched. See, because you got men that can talk all this but ain't touching nobody. Because there ain't no anointing there and there is no ruach there.
Right.
So you have to understand that. Once again, and as I said before, when you get in there and people start following the traditions of men, you make the word or the Torah of none effect. You can't affect people while you worried about my gender.
That's right.
See, now you have that, and this is just where I see it. You know how the homosexuals and the lesbians want you to judge them based upon their sexual preference? You're judging me based upon my preference, or not so much my preference, my birth as a woman. You have no right to do that. Just like they have no right to make us judge them or accept them based upon their sexual preference. Your sexual preference is your preference and is an abomination before Abba Yah.
That's right.
I was born this way.
That's right.
Are you understanding me?
Yes.
And I am humble who I am.
Right.
But they allow themselves to follow into that or walk into that. So once again, you have to understand mindsets. You can accept the lesbian and the homosexual, but I have a problem with a woman because of her gender. Not because what's being said is wrong, but because of gender. That just shows you how narrow-minded people are and think they know Abba Yah, and they don't.
Right.
They don't. People think they know him, and they don't. No relationship, no connection. And when there is no connection, that's where you start seeing people shut down and clam up. And you have to understand, you didn't put me here, and you sure can't take me down.
That's right.
And that's the truth. Because you didn't call me, and you didn't appoint me, you didn't anoint me, and you didn't ordain me. So you can't tell me. So if you don't want to listen, keep it moving.
That's right.
Are you following me?
Yes.
And for the ones that do, I appreciate you because you are not gender struck. You understand Torah and you understand truth. And because of that, you have to understand you will go far. Those that don't, won't.
Right.
And you have to understand, my prayer is still to pray that your heart be open and your mind be open to truth. And that you get out of that mentality. That's some messed up stuff, but anyway, I'm going to leave that alone because I know I really will make some folk mad if I say what I would say, but I'm not going to. And so it's important that we understand, once again, their purpose was to pray and to always keep the children of Yisrael upon their heart and also be participants. You cannot be in this once again and not really be a participant. How can you, they were ordained to carry the children of Yisrael upon their heart to pray for them. This is how you know really, and once again, let's look at it. A real leader is going to pray for the mishpachah. They're not going to damn them to hell. They're not going to pray that they fall off and die. They're not going to pray that they be judged. You're praying that they stay out of judgment.
That's right.
Because you understand that the purpose of the attire at that time was to always be a memory for them on their heart. How can we say we forget? We may not have the breastplate, but we still have the Torah that shows us where our mishpachah is supposed to be.
That's right.
And that's upon our hearts. And that's where they are on my heart. So when you hear about a person falling off, that does not give me any kind of joy, nor pleasure. That bothers me. Are you following me? That bothers me. And it should bother you.
That's right.
Because if it doesn't bother you, then how are you connected? Somebody thought enough about you to tell you. He thought enough to tell somebody to pray for you, even though you may never get to meet them or know them. And if nobody else ever prayed for you, Yahushua did.
That's right. That's right.
And if we're going to walk as he did, then we need to know what he did and what he continues to do to walk in his path. Are you understanding?
Yes.
That's important. That's important unto us. Very important. Because if we don't, we won't know. And that's you looking at Alan 2, 5, and 6. And it is so. And it is so. All right, let's continue these. We're at the close of it. Verse 27. 38. We're still in 29. You got it?
Yes.
Come on. I'm asking you. 6.
One lamb you shall offer in the morning, and the other lamb you shall offer at twilight. With the one lamb shall be 1/10 of an ephah of flour mixed with 1/4 of a hin of pressed oil, and 1/4 of a hin of wine as a drink offering. And the other lamb you shall offer at twilight, and you shall offer it with the grain offering and the drink offering, as in the morning, for a sweet aroma, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. This shall be a continual burnt offering throughout your generations at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before Yahuwah, where I will meet you to speak with you. And there I will meet with the children of Yasrael, and the tabernacle shall be sanctified by my esteem. So I will consecrate the tabernacle of the congregation and the altar, and I will consecrate both Aharon and his sons to minister to me as priests.
And it is so. Once again, this was created so that he could deal or minister to his people. You had Haran and his sons in the forefront, and then you had the children of Yasrael behind them. They would minister to Abiyah, and Abiyah would in turn minister through them to the people or to the children of Yasrael. Once again, it's all about relationship. Everything he did was always to ensure or to let it be known, make it known to the children of Yasrael, his involvement with them, with us. He wants to be involved with us. He wants to be involved with us. And so everything he does shows us that he wants to be involved with us. So all this had to be done. Once again, somebody may say, but what does that have to do with us now? Just what I said, involvement. Who wants to serve somebody that's distant? You want to be able to be up close and personal, at least I do.
Right, yes, that's right.
I want to be able to have that relationship with him. And he wants the relationship with us. Why do you think he woke you up? He didn't wake us up just to have us sitting on a shelf or on the outside. He woke us up to be able to have a relationship with us.
That's right.
And so it's important that we understand that.
That's right.
He wants to be involved with us, and we want to be involved with him just as much. More so. More so. He wants to be involved with us. And we want to be involved with him as well. We see his passion. I see his passion. And when you can see his passion, then you understand that if he did not have us, we would not be where we are today. Many of us would have been dead. Many of us would have been spewed out of his mouth. But he did not. So once again, it's important that we understand. If he didn't care for us and he was not concerned about us, we wouldn't be here.
That's right.
44, 45, 46.
Sanctify the tabernacle of the congregation and the altar. Sanctify also both Aaron and his sons to minister to me in the priest's office. And I will dwell among the children of Israel and will be their Elohim. And they shall know that I am the Lord, Elisha, that brought them forth out of the land of Mitzrayim, that I may dwell among them. I am the Lord, Elisha.
And it is so. Now, once again, what did he just now say? So I will consecrate the tabernacle of the congregation and the altar where the offerings would be received. And I will also consecrate both Aaron and his sons to minister to me as priests. 45, 46. I will dwell among the children of Yasrael and will be their power. He was not setting this up to be distant. He was setting it up to be in the midst of his people, our people. Has that changed? Absolutely not. And they shall know that I am Yahuwah, their power. How would you know unless you had an experience with him and you continually experience his presence? We continually experience it, not just through study, but through praise, prayer, and worship. Because you got to take time to stop and say, Todah, for that which you've given to me.
Yes, yes.
And they shall know I am Yahuwah, their power, who brought them up out of the land of Mitzrayim, that I may dwell among them. I am Yahuwah, their power, that I may dwell among them. It tells us that he inhabits or tabernacles the praise of his people. That is a great example of him tabernacling in the midst of his people. Because he would come and speak to the people, to the children of Israel. You have to understand, we don't just want him to speak to us to warn us. We want him to speak to us and allow us to know that what we've been doing is right.
That's right. That's good.
You want him to say to you, before we cross over, well done. You don't want to have to wait till just then. I want to know that I'm doing great here.
That's right.
And you can know that. But it takes relationship and dwelling in the midst, in his midst, and doing what he's called us to do. And not just looking at this as just information for us as a people. It is great, phenomenal information. And we should never disregard information. But when you take information over giving him the praise because he gave you the information, something is wrong. Something is wrong. Because he will always instruct us and he will always give it to us. But it comes a time if you don't understand the importance of that information to where you relish it to the point that you say, you know what, Abiyah, I appreciate you for this. Because if you hadn't given me this, I would not have known it. I would not have known it. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be where I am today had you not revealed this to me. And I appreciate you. And I give your name praise and esteem. We got to take it like Dawood. Remember when Dawood was returning the Torah to the city? What did he do? Every few feet they was offering up and he was dancing. He was getting it in. He was dancing. He danced, and when he got into the city, he turned and he twirled and he shouted. I say shouted. Till he shouted off his outer cloak. He didn't get naked.
That's right.
But he appreciated Abiyah for restoration. For restoration. The wine and song of song. What would I know about being restored if I never lost my place? What would I know about his mercy if I had gotten out of place?
Right.
We didn't know we were out of place until Torah showed us.
Right. Good.
That's why I appreciate him, and that's why I praise him the way I do. And once again, involvement and participation. The eating of the food showed their involvement and showed they took it in, and it just was not an outside thing, but it was also an inner.
That's right.
And it is so.
And it is.
All right, 30, and we're going to look at chapter 30 and verse 10.
And Aaron shall make atonement upon his horns once a year. With the blood of the sin offering of atonement, once a year he should make atonement upon it throughout your generations. It is most set apart to you, and it is so.
And it is so. And it is so. We celebrate atonement. Yes, we do. We commemorate and we remember. And you have to understand, it's Yahusha that covers. Blood covers. Blood covers.
That's right.
It's his blood that covers us and gives us access to the relationship with Abiyah. And it is so. All right, now let us go to our Haftorah portion, which is Ezekiel, chapter 43, and we'll look at verse 10 through 27. Chapter 43, verse 10. Verse 10, page 876. 43 and 10. Ezekiel, chapter 43, starting at verse 10. And we'll read all the way to 27. Let's do 4.
You son of man, show the temple to the house of Yasharel, that they may be ashamed of their iniquities.
Oh, no.
Oh. And let them measure the pattern. they be ashamed of all that they have done, show him the form of the temple, and the fashion thereof, and the goings out thereof, and the comings in thereof, and all the forms thereof, and all the ordinances thereof, and all the forms thereof, and all the Torah thereof, and write it in their sight, that they may keep the whole form thereof, and all the ordinances thereof, and to do them. This is the Torah of the temple. Upon the top of the mountain, the whole limit thereof round about shall be most set apart. Behold, this is the Torah of the temple. And these are the measures of the altar after the cubits. The cubit is a cubit and a handbreadth. Even the bottom shall be a cubit, and the handbreadth a cubit. And the border thereof by the edge thereof round about shall be a span. And this shall be the higher place of the altar. And it is so.
And it is so. And it is so. Starting at verse 10. Yeah. Verse 10. Now this shows us that they messed up. You son of man, show the temple to the house of Yasrael, that they may be ashamed of their iniquities, and let them measure the pattern. That means that they have strayed and messed up. So this is why it's so important that as we read in these portions and we go back and we're looking at the things that happened, once again, when belief is broken down and that relationship is removed, then guess what? Our experience with him falls. This is what you can see, and this is what happens when we don't value our relationship with our Yah. We desecrate, first of all, yourself. Then you go to that place that is consecrated to carry his name, and you do the same thing. Somebody will say, how do you do that? Because when you come in, you don't do what you're supposed to do. Wasn't it Dawood that said, enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise? Right. Once again, you have to understand the connection here. How did they come in? What was it that they did? They stopped believing, and so they stopped participating, and they stopped doing it. They start following after other hours. We don't want to do that. This is not a place where we come to lecture. Let me make sure we understand that. This is a house of worship and praise to Abba Yah, and we don't want to forget our responsibility. We are obligated to praise him. We are obligated. And that obligation is not a burden.
That's right.
It is only right to give him thanks.
That's right.
Now look at, like I say, once again, ashamed. Why would you be ashamed if you were doing right?
Mm-hmm.
It's only when we do wrong that we ought to be ashamed.
That's right.
And if they be ashamed of all that they have done, show them the form of the temple and the fashion thereof, and the goings out thereof, and the comings in thereof, and all the forms thereof, and all the ordinances thereof, and all the forms thereof, and all the Torah thereof, and write it in their sight, that they may keep the whole form thereof, and all the ordinances thereof, and do them. Once again, you've got to do what is put before you. We cannot just be hearers and not doers. You have to practice, and perfect practice makes perfect, not just practice.
That's right.
This is the Torah of the temple upon the top of the mountain. The whole limits thereof round about shall be most set apart. Behold, this is the Torah of the temple. I mean, you weren't supposed to just go in there and do whatever you wanted to do. You weren't supposed to go in there and just fix it however you wanted to fix it. Are you understanding me?
Yes.
It's supposed to be, once again, consecrated. So we want to make sure that as we look at the temple, because we know we are the tabernacle or the temple of the Ruach HaKodesh, and you don't want to defile the temple. Are you understanding? So you have to understand what they were doing to the natural temple, they were also doing with this temple.
That's right.
They were also doing with this temple. Because you have to understand, this is the most valuable temple that you have. Are you following me?
Yes.
Most valuable. Because not only does it house the Torah, but it does also house the Ruach HaKodesh.
That's right.
So it's important that we understand that. All right, let's read.
Verse 15. So the altar shall be 4 cubits, and the altar and upward shall be 4 horns. And the altar shall be 12 cubits long, 12 broad, square the 4 squares thereof. And the settle shall be 14 cubits long, and 14 broad, and 4 squares thereof. And the border about it shall be half a cubit. The bottom thereof shall be a cubit about. And its stairs shall look toward the east. And he said to me, Son of man, thus says power Yahuwah. These are the ordinances of the altar in the day when they shall make it, to offer burnt offerings thereon, and to sprinkle blood thereon. And it is so.
And it is so. Now, once again, giving a explicit account of how the altar should be created. It was to have 4 horns, and the altar shall be 12 cubits long, 12 broad, square, and the 4 squares thereof. And the settle shall be 14 cubits long and 14 broad, and the 4 squares thereof. And the border about it shall be half a cubit, and the bottom thereof shall be a cubit about, and his stairs shall look toward the east. So once again, remember when they had to have trousers made?
Yes.
So when they walked up those stairs, they would be able to have them on, and nobody could look under and see their nakedness. That's where you get really the real boxers from. Because that's what they created, because they had to be from their waist to their thigh. So that was the true form of the inner garment for them. And it is so. Now, let's look at this real quick. The altar of incense inside the tabernacle, chapter 30. No, I'm sorry, not 30. I'm sorry. Let me go back. Let me go back. Sorry. Let's see this real quick. All right. All right, once again, the stairs. So they shall look toward the east. Once again, this is why they had to wear the undergarments so nobody could see up under their clothes. And he said to me, Son of man, thus says the Master Yahuwah, these are the ordinances of the altar in the day when they shall make it, to offer burnt offerings thereon and to sprinkle blood thereon. Once again, the importance of how it was to be built. Are you following me?
Yes.
And you shall give to the Kohen the Levites that be of the descendants of Zadok, which approach to me to minister to me, says the Master Yahuwah, a young bullock for a sin offering. That was to be the sin offering. Now, let's look at this. I was looking for something else, but that'll be fine. All right, once again, they were to be given a young bullock for a sin offering. They didn't get the ram, but they were to be given a young bullock for a sin offering. Are you following? All right. Once again, we're looking at everything that was to be performed in the tabernacle, also with the people that were involved in the tabernacle. You couldn't do whatever you wanted to do. You could not offer whatever you wanted to offer. You had to do it explicitly like you were commanded or like it was commanded for them to do so. Are you understanding? Once again, you couldn't just come up in there and give what you wanted to give. First and foremost, you had to follow the instructions that were given to you. Okay. Now, once again, we're looking at this from whose point of view? Yashayah, Isaiah. This is Abiyah speaking to him, telling him. I'm sorry. We're Ezekiel. I'm so sorry, y'all. All right, I'm going to leave that right there. in Ezekiel. All right, once again, we're seeing it from Ezekiel's point of view. Yes, I'm looking at two places. All right. It is from Ezekiel's point of view of what Abba Yah has given him to tell to the people. Are you following me?
Yes.
Once again, they had messed up tremendously. And because they had messed up, they had forsaken the ordinances and the structure and how this thing was to follow, how this thing was to come together. They had basically walked away from the instructions and they had began to do other things. So now this is the resetting or the reorder of the things that needed to be done. All right? It's important that we understand that. Whenever we see, once again, the establishment or the reestablishing of something, once again, Abba Yah says, if they don't be ashamed, he says, show them so that they can be ashamed. He wanted to show them how far they had backed away and how far they had walked away from truth.
Right.
So he was reestablishing what was to take place. And it is so. And it is so. All right, let's look at verse 19 and 20. 19, 20, and 21.
You should give to the Kohen, the Levites, that be of the descendants of the Sadat, which approach to me, to minister me, says Hallelujah. A young lot for a sin offering. You should take the blood and put it in the four corners of it, on the four corners of the ledge, and upon the border round about. Thus shall you cleanse and purge it. You should take the bullock also of the sin offering. You shall burn it in the appointed place of the house, outside the sanctuary.
And it is so. Once again, let's look at what he's saying. And he said to me, Son of man, thus says the Master Yahuwah, these are the ordinances of the altar the day when they shall make it to offer burnt offerings thereon and to sprinkle blood thereon. And you shall give to the Kohen, the Levites, that be of the descendants of Zadok, which approach to me to minister to me, saying, the Master Yahuwah, a young bullock for a sin offering. And you shall take the blood and put it on the four horns of it, and on the four corners of the ledge, and upon the border round about. Thus shall you cleanse and purge it. You shall take the bullock also of the sin offering, and he shall burn it in the appointed place of the house outside the sanctuary. Once again, sin was never supposed to be inside. It was also always supposed to be handled on the outside, never on the inside. What does that say to us? Once again, sin should never get in us. What is sin? The transgression of the disobedience of Abba Yah's instructions, which we know formally as law, what they call law. So once again, it's giving us a description and showing us that sin should never be inside. Are you understanding me? And when you have to deal with sin, you are supposed to what? Take it outside and deal with it. Don't ever let it get into you and it deals with you.
Right.
That's right.
Are you following me?
Yes.
A lot of times we ask the question, what is sin? Once again, sin is transgression of Abba Yah's law. How do we, as we are people, the people of Abba Yah, sin? Because a lot of people ask the question, how do we sin? If his Torah is in us and his seed is in us and it can't be changed and it's in us, can we sin? Absolutely. When you break his instructions. Yes, you can. So understand, you are to never get to the point that you get so caught up that you don't feel like I can never step outside of his instructions. Because you have to understand, if you step outside of his instructions, you what? You sin.
That's
right.
That's transgression of his law. If you're supposed to keep the Sabbath and you don't, what you call that?
Sin.
That's sin. That's just not a day you miss. That's sin. You can't make excuses if we don't keep the feasts. That's what? Sin. Because you're disobeying a direct what? Commandment. A direct command. The commandments. To esteem his name and not use it in a false way. But yet you do. Is that sin or is that not sin? That's sin. If you swear by any other name and not his, what is that?
Sin.
It's sin. So yes, you can. This is why we have to guard the Torah and not let it escape us. And this is what they did. They stopped following and adhering to the instructions and got outside of truth. Once again, he's never going to warn us about something that cannot be done. You can sin, but we don't want to.
That's right.
You don't want to. I don't want to.
That's right.
You don't want to break his instructions. So we daily find ourselves practicing it. We find ourselves daily living by it. We find ourselves daily making sure that we are following in the instructions that he's given unto us.
That's right.
And you have to understand something. This is why the prophets were put in place, to bring Yisrael back into place. You have the priests, you have the judges. And when they could not whip them back in with the instructions, then the prophetic ministry had to come in.
That's
The
right.
prophets. He said in Matthew, I believe it is 5:17 and 18. He said, don't think that I've come to do away with the law or the prophets.
That's right.
See, they were killing the prophets at that time because they didn't want to adhere to instructions.
Right.
And you very rarely in this time hear people say they are prophets.
That's right.
Because truthfully, people don't want to admit it, or they either don't accept it or they're not. So you have to understand what the prophet was called to do was bring them back to remembrance and put them back in place. And when you understand that's your responsibility, that's what you do. And if you know anything, and if you watch the lives of the prophets, they don't have friends. Are you following me?
Yes.
See, because you can walk with people for a certain amount of time, and people, you want to know how you know if a person really a hot you when you have to get on them. See, because that's when you make people mad, when you have to get on them. When you have to tell them straighten up and fly right. You have to tell them, no, pull it in, because you're walking a little too loose for the Torah. You got to come on in and pull it in. People don't want to hear that. Are you following me?
Yes.
And so when people don't want to hear that, that's when you know. Now, I'm not saying that all the prophets, because you did have prophets that did have those that walked with them. But the main goal of the prophet, we're seeing it right here, was to show them their error. And then to put things back in its perspective, right perspective, so that the children of Yisrael could walk in the way they were supposed to walk in. Are you following me?
Yes.
If correction never comes, what's the purpose of truly trying to understand instructions? What are instructions given for? To show you how to walk it out the way you're supposed to.
That's right.
And if you're given instructions, that means you're supposed to follow them in that manner.
Right.
Not tailor and not alter. Exactly the way they're supposed to be done.
Right.
Are y'all following me?
Yes.
This is important for us to understand. And he's showing them. He's showing them this important responsibility. Don't just get out there and do anything. And he was showing them what happened. And once again, when you detach yourself from that relationship, then once again, the experience no longer applies.
That's right.
It's no longer valuable. It no longer means anything. That's why it's important to guard the relationship as well. Because how can you say you can ahava somebody's words, but you can't ahava them?
Right.
Are you following me? He is his word.
That's
Right.
So if I'm going to take his instructions, then I have to also embrace and cling to him.
That's right.
If it were not possible, it would not have ever been told us to do so. We have to. And if you can cling to only his instructions and not him, that's not genuine ahava. It's not. Because you can only grasp his words, but you can't grasp him. And so there's something that has to be dealt with. Because we have to ahava him, because he is his word. He is his instructions. You understand? The Yerush is the Torah, in flesh. And he is the son of Abiyah. So you can't just have his words and not have him.
That's right.
We got to have him too. All of it. Are you understanding?
Yes.
All right. Let us finish reading, please.
Ezekiel 43:22. On the second day thou shalt offer a kid of the goats without blemish for a sin offering. They shall cleanse the altar, for the day of cleansing of the bullock. And now it's made in the end of the cleansing. Thou shalt offer a young bullock without blemish and a ram of a flock without blemish. Thou shalt offer them to the Lord, and the priest shall cast salt upon them, and they shall offer the milk for the burnt offering unto the Lord. 7 days shall they prepare every day a goat for the sin offering. They shall also prepare a young bullock and a ram out of the flock without blemish. 7 days shall they purge the altar, purify it, and they shall consecrate themselves. And when these days are expired, it shall be that upon the 8th day and so forward, the priest shall make your burnt offering upon the altar, and your peace offerings I will accept you, saith the Lord our God.
And it is so. And it is so. Once again, it's important that we look at everything that's being given unto us. Everything. And once again, look what he said with the offering. You have to understand that offering that had no blemish and that had no fault, that represented the individual. You would not take a bullock or a young lamb. You wouldn't take anything up that had a flaws because that represented you. So once again, everything that Abba Yah does, he shows us what he expects of us. You don't present yourself raggedy to him. You don't present a raggedy gift. You wouldn't give somebody you care about no raggedy gift. I hope you wouldn't. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't go and give somebody nothing raggedy. You want to give them the best because you want to show them your appreciation for towards them. So you go and find the best thing you can get. It don't necessarily have to be the most expensive thing, but you give them what is from your heart. That represented them. So you wasn't going to take no short leg and no long, one short leg and one long leg. You wasn't going to do that. Because that represented you. And then he wouldn't accept it. Because he knows what he wants and what he does not want. So the offerings represented them. It represented them. And the second day you shall offer a kid of the goats without blemish for a sin offering, and they shall cleanse the altar as they did cleanse it with the bullock. Once again, everything represents our presentation ourselves unto Abba Yah. We don't present ourselves just any way to him. We present ourselves whole. We give him our undivided attention. We give him our complete selves. We give him the good, the bad, the ugly, and the indifferent.
Right.
Because that's what he expects of us. You can't just go once again and try to walk this. You got to walk it straight.
Right.
Because he already knows what's in us and what's not in us. So it's important that we give him our complete total selves. When you have made an end of cleansing it, you shall offer a young bullock without blemish and a ram out of the flock without blemish. Everything had to be without a blemish. That's saying to us, we have to walk this. And if it couldn't be done, he would not expect it of us. It can be done. Are you following me?
Yes.
We have to desire to do that. Because he's not going to accept anything less than our best. Are you following me?
Yes.
We have to. It doesn't matter what it is. Whatever you offer to him, you need to offer him your best, especially if you offer him yourself. Because when you offer him yourself, he expects that, because guess what? He sees us as his best. That's why we are unique and we are his chosen. Not because we had everything together. Remember, it ain't because we had everything together. It ain't because we were right or we were the largest people. It's because he chose to make us his best and his unique.
Right.
So it only behooves us to give him our best and give him our all.
That's right.
And that means from A to Z. We're to give him our all. And when you understand that, there's no problem with that. No problem whatsoever. Are we understanding?
Yes.
Now, salt is a part of covenant, and salt is a preserver. Salt keeps. And it helps to seal the covenant. And the Kohen priest shall cast salt upon them, and they shall offer them for a burnt offering to Yahuwah. 7 days shall you prepare every day a goat for a sin offering. They shall also prepare a young bullock and a ram out of the flock without blemish. Everything is pointing towards you got to do your best. You got to give your best. We can't come to him half-stepping.
Right.
7 days shall they purge the altar and purify it, and they shall set apart themselves. Even where they offered had to be clean. If they just couldn't offer and keep on offering and never clean it,
Right.
it had to be clean. Verse 27, And when these days are expired, it shall be that upon the 8th day, 8 also represents new beginnings. The new beginning, and so forward, the Kohen shall make your burnt offerings upon the altar and your shalom offerings, and I will accept you, says Yahuwah. He has to accept us. He has to accept us. It doesn't matter if man rejects you, as long as you do what Abiyah says and do it according to the way he said, then we are acceptable in his sight. So it doesn't matter if man don't accept you. As long as you do what he's called you to do and do it exactly the way he says does it, then you will be acceptable. If you do it any other way, you will not be acceptable. You won't be acceptable. So once again, this is why you understand, those of us that understand, and I'm not just talking about women, but also brothers, because you got a lot of ak out there, and I'm talking about the ones that are humble and meek, that when they put stuff out there, everybody don't accept it and receive it because it goes against the grain. And when you don't follow the pattern of everybody else, folks will not accept you because you don't go with them. You have to understand, they were set apart to do this. And so Yisrael got angry with them when they did not follow and when they would not adhere to their voice. See, because you can't be a people pleaser in this. You have to please Abiyah. And when your life is pleasing, you are acceptable to him. Once again, it doesn't matter if men accept you. That doesn't matter. What matters is that he accepts you, because when he accepts you, then he's gonna maintain your life, and he's gonna put you in places. For everybody that rejects it, there's always one or two that's going to accept it because it's for them. So you got to learn how to, once again, you got to learn how to shun folk out. Block people out. You do, because if you run after everything, something negative, somebody say, you'll be fighting against the world, and I ain't got time to fight against the world. There was a song that says, I'm a lover, not a fighter. I don't use the word lover, but I Yahweh Yahuwah, so I don't have time to fight ignorant, foolish people. Because I'm not going to waste precious breath and time on that. So once again, it's important that we Yahweh him with all of our hearts and all of our souls, and give him all of your strength. And it is so. All right, let us go into the book of Ibram, which is Hebrews chapter 13, and we're going to read from 10 to 17. Chapter 13, verse 10. And especially for babes that are just coming into this, and even those that have been in this for a while in your season, you have to understand, there are things that we see in the writings, and a lot of time what people want you to do is they want you to pull out certain things that the Ruach Kodesh is not telling you to pull out. And if it's not time to pull certain things out, then you don't. Especially when you have people that are still trying to understand just what it means to live by the Torah. When you have people asking you, where can you buy the Torah from? And if you already have a complete Bible, the Torah is already in it. Which to a lot of people may think, well, I need it separate. When you start doing things based upon that, eventually, if you're not careful, you will end up being in that same system with other people that don't believe in the other writings or the other scrolls. So when you tell people, look, if you have a complete instructions of Abiyah, are you understanding?
Yes.
You have it. The Torah is the 5 books of Moshe. And then you have Ketuvah, which are the prophetic writings. Are you understanding?
Yes.
And then you have the writings, and then you have the Hadashah. So once again, you have it all right there, but when you don't know that, you tend to believe you have to buy something separate. So for people that don't understand that, it wouldn't make sense going over their head with something when they don't even know how to find the Torah. Is that making any sense?
Yes.
It makes sense whether you accept it or not. It makes sense. Because what sense or what good does it do to put a person in a car and they don't know the first thing about starting it out? You're going to leave them before you even get started.
Right.
help us, Abba Yah, to understand. It is not about being able to show the information you possess. It is about being able to carry that information and be able to convey to every person on the level that they are on, and still yet be able to make people understand you still have to grow. I don't care if you know all the oohs, the me's. I don't care what all of you know. The feminine, the masculine. It doesn't matter if you don't have a right relationship with Abba Yah and you don't care about somebody that don't know that. It doesn't matter. See, because I learned a long time ago, you don't have to know what you show, because what you know is going to show.
That's right.
Where is our heart in this? Is it truly about winning the prostitutes? Or is it only about flexing because of what we know? What's it about? I'm in it for the prostitutes.
That's right.
And if you ain't in it for the prostitutes, that's you. And I understand prostitutes need to know how to dress. They need to come in fresh. And they're coming in fresh with still the stench from their intimacy with the world. They're coming in still with the stench of error. So it's important that you know how to deal with them from a compassionate view to where they understand, okay, I can't desire that lifestyle anymore. I have to learn how to adorn myself. I have to learn how not to desire that life anymore.
Right.
I got to learn how to desire the sincere milk of the Torah so that I can live right. That's the most important thing to understand. And once again, when they lost that view, that is why the tabernacle ceased. And they ceased from going in because they forgot their purpose. And that was to bring in the prostitutes. I don't use looks. Prostitutes is better, because when you out there doing yin and everything, and you are engulfed and you are involved in every kind of religion and every kind of practice, you're a prostitute. You're not just lost, you're a prostitute. And you understand the mission is to bring them home and to get them out of that desire for that lifestyle. And you can't do that if you're going over people's heads. Are you understanding me?
Yes.
Trust me, I understand and I know there's a lot of things. But what is most important is getting people in it first before we go over their heads. We can talk about the East, we can talk about all that, but it ain't time to talk about that. The most important thing is bringing people in to understand who they are. When you have people that don't even know what they're supposed to eat, what they're supposed to feed their families. These are things that are important. These are things that are important to Abba Yah. And as a leader and as a teacher, you understand that. Oh, you understand that?
Yes.
Yes, you do. When you understand that. When you understand that, you understand there's a place and a time for everything. And all the time is not at the time that we think it is. And it is so. And it is so. All right, let us look at Hebrews chapter 13, verse 10 through 17. And it is so. Once again, let us look at this. Page. All right, 1850. We're going to look at it once again. This is what I truly hover about the Torah portions, and that what we read during the Sabbath, because it helps us to see our ancestors' lifestyle from beginning, middle, even all the way up to the Brit Hadashah. It allows us to see their pattern, their lifestyle, and it allows us to see the footsteps that they, the pattern of their lifestyle and the footsteps that they took while they were still in the earth, so that we don't walk in that same path. All right, chapter 13, verses 10 through 17. Let us do 2 verses apiece. Hebrews,
we have an altar in which they have no right to eat which serve the tabernacle. For the bodies of those beasts whose blood is brought into the sanctuary by the Kohen Haggadol for sin and burned outside the camp. And it is so.
And it is so. All right. We have an altar in which they have no right to eat, which serve the tabernacle. For the bodies of those beasts whose blood is brought into the sanctuary by the Kohen Haggadol for sin are burned outside the camp. They were burned outside the camp. Once again, you don't want to deal with sin. We don't want sin in our lives, period. Are you following me?
Yes.
Because if you have sin in your life, you cannot be a participant, or you cannot be, you can't have a relationship, because it is the sin that separates us from our Yah. It is the sin that keeps us from being able to be at his table.
That's right.
And it is so.
It is.
All right, 11 and 12. I'm sorry, 12 and 13.
Verse 12 reads, Therefore Yahusha also, that he might set apart the people with his own blood, suffered outside the gate. Let us go forth therefore to him outside the camp, bearing his reproach. And it is.
Bearing his reproach. They did not accept Yahusha. They did not accept him. Therefore Yahusha also, that he might set apart the people with his own blood. That is why people that reject Yahusha reject the blood that covers your sins. So people that are out there that don't accept Yahusha, their sins are not covered. Because you have to understand, Yahusha is not separate from the first covenant. He is a part of the covenant. There's nothing, this ain't no Old Testament. It is covenant. First covenant and the renewed covenant. It's all about covenant. And it is so. Now let's look at what it says. Suffered outside the gate. Suffered outside the gate. Let's look at here. Footnote. The term outside the gate has a particular meaning in the first century context, being on Mount Olives, not Gordon's Calvary, neither the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Yet millions of Christians erroneously sing about Gordon's Calvary being deceived as the place of burial and resurrection. Yahusha died on the Mount of Olives as the red heifer, where the sin of Yisrael was expiated. Once again, understanding he was outside, not inside. Not inside, outside. And it was his blood that covers us. So if you don't have the blood of Yahusha on your life, your sin is not covered. Because what covers it? What animal are you offering up? And even if you offer up an animal, is the animal greater than Yahusha's blood? Absolutely not. It is not greater than his blood. And so it is his blood that covers us. It is his blood that covers us. Because remember, blood stains and covers. It's a stainer. It's a covering. Get cut and put it on there. Get cut and let blood stay on some clothes. Wash it out. You can't. It stains it permanently. Unless you get it out real quick. And we ain't trying to wash the blood of Yahusha off of our lives, are we? No, because you can't. Once it's really on there.
That's right.
Once it's really on there, you can't. Because once blood stains, you can't get it out. So he stained our lives with his life. Blood represents the life. His life takes over our life. Because you have to understand, we would not be able to make it and stand in his presence because our lives were not worthy.
Right.
Because of all that was done. But Yahushua was he was and still is without sin. And that's why his blood had to cover us so that we could have right access and continual access to the Yahweh. So for those that don't believe in Yahushua, please tell me, who do you have access to? Because it's surely not Abba Yah. Because Yahushua is the access, the only access to Abba Yah. So without the blood, you have no access. That's like having a code. If you don't have that access key, you can't get in. And the manager is going to ask you, when you come, well, do you have a room here? No, but I just need the key. Well, you don't get no key. You didn't pay for the rooms. You don't get no key. Only those that are members of that reside, you get a key. Because you pay for it. You don't pay for the covering, but at the same time you do with your belief through accepting him. Are you following? Because it's a gift unto us. So when we accept him, that is an action. Because if you don't accept him, this is what Yaakov was talking about, who we call James. That's why he said, belief without works is dead being alone. Because if you don't accept Yahusha, where is your true belief? That's what he's talking about. He's not talking about going on a job. He's not talking about anything else. That's what he's talking about. Our acceptance of Yahusha. Right. And your actions backing up what you say you believe. So if we believe Yahuwah, then we have to believe in his son Yahusha.
That's right.
Because that's the work, or he is the work that we are supposed to accept. And when we don't, then where's our belief? You're following?
Yes.
It's important that we understand that. Very important. Very, very important. All right, let's switch read, please. We only have to verse 17.
Okay. For here we have no continuing city, but we seek one to come. By him, therefore, let us offer the sacrifice of praise to Yahuwah continually. That is the fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name. But to do good and to communicate, forget not. For with such sacrifices, Yahuwah is well pleased.
All right, go back and read that again for me, please.
For here we have no continuing city, but we seek one to come. By him, therefore, let us offer the sacrifice of praise to Yahuwah.
Stop right there. Let us offer the sacrifice of what?
Praise.
To who?
Yahuwah.
When?
Continue.
When?
Continue.
When?
Continually.
When?
All the time. Continue.
That is the what? What is the next verse of that?
The fruit of our lips.
The what?
The fruit of our lips.
Say it again.
The fruit of our lips.
The fruit of our lips. What type of fruit is coming out of your mouth? Praise continually. What's coming out of our mouths? Praise. If we are not praising him, then what's coming out of your mouth? I can't fathom in my mind. I can't even understand how people will spend countless hours and times fussing with people instead of praising. Right. Why waste time fighting with folks?
Right.
Why not just go in one day and just have a praise party? We just say, hey, y'all, today we're gonna all come in and we're gonna get on and we're gonna praise Abba Yah. Well, what are we praising him for? Just because he's Abba Yah? You know what becomes hurtful about that? Is because if you say do that, won't nobody show up. Won't nobody show up. But if you go in there and say, look, I got this information, we're gonna look at it, let's look at it, let's have a debate. I'd have 1 million people watching. I'd have 1 million people watching. Why? Because that's what people get into. Show me scripturally. Show me in the Torah where it says we're supposed to debate. Yahusha did not debate.
That's right.
He did not debate. Every time he answered them, it's because they were hot on his trail always. They were always up in his face, so he had to say what he had to say.
Right.
And then he kept it moving. And most of the time, they would always want to fight him. Because he would not play into their games. Continually out of our lips, out of our mouths.
Right.
Your praise is a fruit. Your praise is a fruit.
Right.
Continually. We do more bickering and fussing than we do praising. That's why when somebody say, come on, we got to praise him. Or let's debate. Oh, you got my attention now. Shoot, come on, let's go. I'm ready. We strap for that. But when it comes to this, we have issues. What did it say? Finish reading that.
Verse 17, obey them that have rule over you, and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls, as they that must give account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you.
Now, this is still talking about the priests. They had to do what they had to do. They had to watch over them. This is why, once again, I have an issue with people that are travelers. You really ain't gonna like me today. When you cannot put roots down, who's watching over your soul? Oh, I'm watching you. Who are watching? Really? So he's gonna break what he orchestrated and put in place to make sure you don't get out there and get your behind caught up in something. Oh, no, I ain't gonna do that. No, I can't do that. And then the ones that do, help us, Abiyah. They sit under people that tell them, I hope you blow up and die. They sit under people that teach them erroneous teachings. And then when somebody tells them, you got to be careful with that. That right there is not, that's not kosher. That's not good for you. You don't tell me what to do, because I know what to do. Well, let me ask you this. Are you a priest? Are you a teacher? Well, sit down and shut up. Y'all follow me?
Yes.
Sit down and shut up. You know why? Because until you can understand the purpose of a leader and a teacher, shut up. And I mean that. You need to sit down and be quiet. And no, I am not all in my emotions. But you get indignant when you start seeing all this foolishness. And they over there in Syria in war. There will be wars and rumors of wars. Who has time to be foolish? Please tell me. Please tell me. We're still trying to win our mishpachah.
That's right.
Who has time to be debating and fighting? Nobody. Praise is commonly for us, his people. It's supposed to be. Who has time? Nobody has time. But to do great, to communicate, forget not. For with such sacrifices, Yahuwah is well pleased. So that means he's pleased with my praise. You don't praise him, what do you do? What do you do? You heard of mumble rap? So what do we mumble to Yahuwah? I'm serious. What do we do? Y'all see just what I see in the writings, correct? Everybody see what I see, right? It's in the writings. It's right there. Right there. Once again, what are we wasting our energy on? Foolish things. And then when you see people praising, people are trying to figure out what are they doing. What is that? It's praise. Because he delights in it. And it is well pleasing to him. It's pleasing. Once again, commitment. Folk don't want to commit. Because when you commit, you have to submit.
That's right.
And people don't like to submit.
No.
They don't. You have to understand, writings tell us, when you can't accept corrections, you are a bastard and not a child.
That's right.
You know what that means? That means because you can't be fathered. We always, thought, well, it's because they don't have one. No, it's because we won't be fathered by Abiyah. Now watch this. That doesn't mean your leader fathers you. That means Abiyah fathers you. Your leader just teaches you how to be fathered by Abiyah. Are y'all following me today?
Yes.
It's important that we understand that. This is why we got so many people running around, once again, that's constantly doing stuff, and they think they're doing a service to Abiyah, and they're not. They're not. Y'all, we already in what? April?
Yes.
We're already in April. No, we don't go by the Gregorian or Gregorian calendar. We're already in April. Time is really moving. It's moving.
That's right.
We've already come through Peshat. We've already come through unleavened bread. Now we're in the counting of the Omers. We're following the feasts. We're following the feasts. Weather is still acting crazy. They're fighting over in Syria. No, not our president, but the president of the United States don't know his head from his tail. And he got so much stuff going on till it's not funny.
That's right.
So it ain't time to be playing and acting stupid. Because you gotta understand something. Why everybody wanna be Lone Rangers? If these bombs start falling and all this stuff start happening, I sure got one question for you. Where you gonna go?
Right.
Where you gonna go? I want y'all to think about that today. Where are you gonna go? You don't submit to nobody, but you expect somebody to bring you in to their community, and you don't submit to them. Y'all, you have to understand this is an exchange. You can't go and expect because people say, well, I'm a Hebrew, and I know, you ought to be able to help me. First and foremost, you better try to get somewhere and connect. And be in covenant. Are y'all following me today?
Yes.
See, because you have to understand something. He has a system. He doesn't let just a stranger come in. You can't even take or partake of the feast unless you have done everything that you're supposed to do. So how do we think that this changes when it comes to everything else? It does not. And while you and others run around and say, I don't need nobody, when the grip on everything starts getting tight, remember, you don't need nobody. So when people tell you, no, you can't come here because you don't need nobody, remember that. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
See, because that's the mentality that's really bad, especially with us as a people. We don't need anybody till we don't want to be a part of nobody or bond with nobody till we need them. It's the truth, y'all. And if you don't commit, you better understand something. That walk by yourself is going to be home. And that's right. He never awakened us to be outside and by ourselves. But you have to understand, you don't come in and do it your way. You have to come in and submit. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. One thing I have to say about them camps, you go there, you're going to do it just as they say, or you're going to be outside. And it's the truth. Order is order no matter where you go. And order is needed in order for a thing or people to be productive. Whether it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 3, order is still necessary. Y'all follow me?
Yes.
They had to have order, and they maintained that order. And when they did not, that's when everything started falling apart. The fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name, is pleasing to him. Obey them that have the rule over you and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls, as they must give an account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you. Are we understanding?
Yes.
Once again, this is why people are out there. And if you can't submit to a person, you surely are not submitting to Yahuwah. Because who set this up? Did man set it up or Yahuwah? Who set it up?
Yahuwah.
Say it again. Who set it up?
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah set it up. Yahuwah set it up. And he's not going to go against himself for none of us. Period. None of us. And you have to understand, once again, it is about unity. And we can't be unified if everybody's here doing everything and doing whatever they want to do. That's not what this is about. It is about us submitting and doing, first of all, to our Yah. Because if you submit and truly are submitted to our Yah, then you have no problem with leadership, especially if they're not teaching you all crazy and off the wall stuff. That's right. And that's true. They're not teaching you go bobbing for apples and you pull up the apple and bring it and we're going to cut it open and whatever the seed say, that's what we're going to say, that's your future. But somebody said to stick with Torah, no matter what you do, follow Torah, follow the instructions of Abba Yah. Follow it. And not just follow it, but follow it from here. Follow it from here, and you can't go wrong. And it is so. And it is so. And it is so. Come on, put your hands together and sing here. It's important that we understand the day and time that we're in here. And once again, it's important that we not be travelers. Because travelers are like rolling stones. Wherever you lay your hat, that becomes your home. I've learned over the years, and I've learned even when I was in Christianity, at some point in time, you have to make a conscious decision that you will make a choice to be somewhere and submit to something or somebody. We know we're submitted to Yahuwah. But even in our submitting to Yahuwah, you have to submit yourself to leadership. Even if you are a leader, you still got to submit yourself to other leaders. You don't just try, no, you have to still submit yourself to leaders. We still submit ourselves to each other. The ones that are truly under leadership. You don't just run around and say, well, I'm not going to do this because of you. Once again, it's important that we understand that and we understand what's happening. There is strength in numbers. But if you're not a part of a number, then you are one and you are on your own. Who's going to help you if you fall? Who's going to be there to get you up and get hurt? Who's going to be there? And especially if you know a place you've been, people ain't walking in truth. They don't care whether or not you fall or get up or you stay down. They don't care.
That's right.
But when you're in truth, you can expect that if something happens, you got somebody there that's going to get you up. They're going to help you up. They're going to make sure you get up. Or if you up, they're going to make sure you stay up.
That's right.
Because we're responsible and obligated. We don't just carry you here and here. We carry you here.
That's right.
That's what we're supposed to do. And if he don't show nothing, then you can't tell nothing. But if you always maintain prayer, and if he says something, then you share it with somebody or not. It's important that we understand that. But I encourage you today, if you are not with somebody, and I know when we're online, a lot of times people say, well, there's nobody close to me. It has nothing to do with you being close to you. It has everything to do with, are you getting what you need? Are you getting not just your needs, but your wants? In other words, I want to hear this. I want to know this. I don't just need to hear this. I want to hear and know this.
Right.
You got to understand needs and wants go hand in hand, especially when they are especially when they have to do with Torah. I'm encouraging you today to connect. If you don't connect with me, I said it and I'll say it again. That is no problem with me. But you need to connect with someone. You need to put some roots down with somebody. So as we continue to grow and as things continue to unravel, you will not be out here by yourself. Yes, we have Abiyah. Yes, we have Yahusha and we have the Ruach HaKodesh. But he is not going to put away with and do away with something that he created to ensure that we would always have a secure foundation and that we would have a support system that supports us in everything that we do concerning Torah. Once again, I encourage you to seek Abiyah, to know where to lay your roots. See, because one thing I've seen is that when people get hurt, the first thing they do is use the social media as their platform to hit. You got everybody from Joe Blow to Jane Doe that's putting up their answer, their belief. Some go even with scripture, and some of it be on point. But then when you go back and you look, you say, but you saying that, but look what you saying. You saying that to them, but look at your page. Because I don't look at people's pages. I tell people, you can come look at mine because all you're going to see on mine is the word.
That's right.
That's what you're going to see on mine. Because I believe in what I'm doing. But it's important that we understand there's a right way and a healthy way to vent, and there's a wrong way. But when you're out there by yourself, we tend to do whatever floats our boat. And then somebody will say something, and if it is not the right thing and you're vulnerable, sometimes you make yourself susceptible or you accept those things and you take it in. And it could be right and then it could be wrong. But if you're vulnerable and it goes with what you're doing and you accept it and you don't really understand what comes along with it, you can find yourself not even walking in truth. Because all of that heaped up and piled up upon you, then you start asking questions, well, Yahuwah, if you hear me, then why did I have to go through that? Then why did I have to deal with this? And the enemy loves, he hoppers to play on people's emotions when it comes to things that don't always work in our esteem. Now you're questioning. And the next thing you know, somebody will come and they will basically give you the answer to your question. Well, you got to remember this, that, and the other. And remember this, that, and the other. Next thing you know, now people are caught hook, line, and sinker. And now they've gotten a hook in their mouths, and now they're walking in error. Because they had nobody there to tell them, look, that's not right. Don't follow up on that. Get off of that, go pray, and ask Abiyah to bring healing to your heart. Stop venting on the internet. The thing we're supposed to do is pray. Pray. Ask for healing. Ask for his shalom. And he'll give it to you. But he can't give it to you if you don't ask for it. I know it's not popular. And I'm not trying to be popular. But I'm doing what Abiyah has commissioned me to do. And that is to bring truth and to bring our people back into the right standing and the right way. Don't ever think you can make it by yourself.
That's right.
I can say all day long, you're not alone. But until you believe that and you react upon that, you will continue to do what you've been accustomed to doing, being by yourself. Once again, I pray that you have learned something from the teaching, and that you will take it to heart, and that you will truly understand that Abiyah is here to do us great and not harm, and that everything in the writing he's given unto us to show us how we are to govern our lives. So I pray on today that you will ruminate this as you rest for the rest of the day. Enjoy your Sabbath lunch, your Sabbath meal, and as you relax and rest, that you would allow Abiyah to speak to your heart, especially if you are by yourself. Make it a point to ask him, how and who should I connect with? Because he's coming back for people. He never said he was coming back for just you, and you. And it's amazing. We are a people that have major issues about connecting. That's why we're always talked about, because we're the ones that's always having issues with just connecting. Something simple as saying, I'm going to connect because I want to be a part, because I truly don't want to be out here by myself. People ask you, oh, you're a Hebrew? Yeah, I'm a Hebrew. Where you go? Oh, I'm a Hebrew. You ask other people, they're glad. They say, oh, I'm Baptist. I'm a part of New Birth Baptist Church. And no issue. No issue whatsoever. When it comes to us, oh, I'm a Hebrew. I'm led by the Ruach Kodesh, who leads me and guides me. But who are you a part of? Where do you come under? Who are you? I'm a messenger. That's who I am. I'm a messenger. It's important that you understand that.
That's right.
Because who's going to back you up if you ever get in a situation?
Okay.
Think about that. Who got your back? Who got your back? Oh, yes, I do. I got your back. TMYK.
That's right.
Messengers got your back.
That's right.
Are you following me?
Yeah, yes.
You got to have somebody that's going to have your back.
That's right now.
That's important. Are you following me?
Yes.
You got to have somebody that's going to have your back. That's important. That's community. That's community. So once again, I pray that you will seek Abiyah to know and to be confident in that. Once again, I Yahweh you, and we are praying with you and for you. We are. And I pray once again that you will know that. And I say it and I continue to say it. You are not alone. You are not alone. But in order to really experience that you're not alone, you have to also make the connection on your end. Because we do pray for you.
That's right.
And that's the truth.
That's right.
We do pray for you. And I talk to everybody that contacts me. Unless you contacted me for foolishness, then I don't. So it's important that we understand the importance of connecting. Once again, I want to say, may Abba Baruch your rest on today. May he continue to minister to you, and may he continue to allow his face to shine on you. Once again, I am Prophetess Sabrina Brown, also Moral 777, and I am the leader of Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom of Great Belief Ministries located in South Carolina. I want you to remember here at Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom of Great Belief Ministries, this is the place where
The Torah does the body
excellent. Until next time, may Abba Barukatah and keep you in his shalom until we meet again. I also want you to remember that you've been touched by Champion TV, a place where the champions reside.